Story 1. I created a bucket list from the top comments. If anyone is interested, edit. Added 9 more. Now the list is updated. Edit. After all these comments, I'm definitely trying Malort and horse jizz. Cocktails to try. Palomas. Trinidad Sour. Aviation. Sazerac. Daiquiri. Penicillin. Bobby Burns. Oaxaca Old Fashioned. Toreador. Charlie Chaplin. Vodka Gimlet. Whiskey Smash. Tom Collins. Corpse Reviver. Dark and Stormy. French 75. Moscow Mule. Negroni. The Godfather. Horse Jizz. Malort. Rusty Nail. The Last Word. The Stinger. Caipirinha. Snickers. Sidecar. Paper Plane. Fernet. Pim's Cup. Story 2. Amateur bartender, which I think just makes me an alcoholic. But my choice of drink for New Year's is Corpse Reviver. It was a precursor to the Bloody Mary in that it was supposed to cure a hangover according to the original recipe. You were supposed to drink 5 of them in quick succession to cure the hangover. I don't know how they did it, but 5 will just about kill me. Gin or bourbon if you like. Lillet Blanc, Cointreau, and lemon juice. Story 3. Along the same line, what's the best way to handle ordering a drink listed here when the bartender obviously has no idea what you are referring to? I'm assuming in a local hangout, relatively quiet, it's easy to hand your phone over, but that doesn't work anywhere populated. Story 4. The Godfather. Equal parts amaretto and bourbon or scotch poured directly over ice in a shallow old-fashioned glass. No nonsense. Tastes magical. For those who like their drinks a little sweeter, add cola, and it will taste pretty much like an adult Dr. Pepper. For those of you just learning of this drink, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. A lot of you are suggesting changing to 3:1 or 2:1 in favor of whiskey. I love the sweet and smoky flavor of Jim Beam and Disaronno at 1:1, but each to their own. As suggested, there are other cocktails in the same theme. Godmother equals amaretto and gin. Goddaughter equals amaretto and vodka. Godson equals amaretto and rum. Story 5. Vodka Gimlets. My Nana told me they were her first experience with alcohol, and she liked them so much she slammed 8. Then there was some talk of my papa having to help her with her girdle, and I blocked out the rest. Story 6. Whiskey Smash. In a cocktail shaker, muddle a couple of lemon wedges in simple syrup. Add a few mint leaves and 1.5 to 2 ounces of whiskey. Shake and strain over fresh ice. It's a super refreshing summer drink. Another one I've been drinking lately, I don't have a name for. Take 1.5 ounces of gin, half an ounce of Saint Germain, half an ounce of lemon juice, and a few dashes of grapefruit bitters. Shake and strain over fresh ice. Equally refreshing as a whiskey smash if you like gin. Story 7. Ooh, here we go. Cocktail bartender here, full of opinions. My number 1 answer is always going to be a Trinidad Sour purely because of how out of left field it is for most drinkers. The base spirit is bitters instead of any of the common offenders. It's spicy, rich, complex, and very well balanced for containing a shot and a half of bitters. Though I personally think it's better with equal parts rye and Angostura, but I love my rye. Gin fans need to give the Aviation a good try. It's one of the cocktails that turned me from, I don't really like gin to, turns out I just don't really like gin and tonic. It's floral, fragrant, and quite tart. If you're an old-fashioned fan, try the Sazerac. It's always going to be one of my biggest benchmarks for any bar I go to. If I wander into any bar that calls themselves a cocktail bar and they don't know how to make one, I immediately default to a good old bourbon and Coke, because I no longer trust them with anything more complicated. It's sweet, rich, spicy, and all-around gorgeous. This recipe is for rye whiskey, but I often prefer cognac if there's a good one available. Vodka fans, try a real proper Cosmopolitan sometime. Most recipes for the Cosmo are very crowd-pleasing, by which I mean sugary and awful. A real Cosmo, in my opinion, should be a nice light pink and be opaque. If it's a rich pink or purple and you can see through it, run. Try 50 milliliters vodka, 20 milliliters Cointreau, 15 milliliters cranberry, 20 milliliters lime, and a burnt orange zest garnish. The lime being dominant over the cranberry is a big deal in my opinion. Note that mine is very booze forward. Rum fans, a daiquiri will always be my #1 rum cocktail, though I would serve this particular version with a bit less sugar, but switch it up with a Hemingway daiquiri for a drier, more tart alternative. If you're a big fan of dark rum, try a dark rum old-fashioned sometime. It's top-notch. Whiskey sour and Scotch fans need to try the penicillin. It's a style of ginger whiskey sour that floats a bit of smoky Scotch on top to give it a bit of a bite. Always going to be one of my favorites. But if you're a Scotch fan that wants to keep things on the dark and boozy end of things, try a Bobby Burns, which is, at its core, a Scotch Manhattan with a touch of Benedictine for sweetness. Tequila fans, if you're more of a whiskey lover outside of your tequila adoration, try an Oaxaca Old Fashioned, which will always be one of my favorites. If you're more on the rum and vodka side of things, try the Toreador, a margarita twist that substitutes triple sec for apricot brandy. Another fun option is just sticking tequila in place of other spirits. It's surprisingly versatile. The penicillin I listed earlier, try it with tequila and a smoky mezcal for the bite instead. Speaking of apricot brandy, a Charlie Chaplin will always be one of my go-tos for those who aren't huge fans of cocktails where you can taste the booze. If you like French martinis, this might be your new jam. It's an annoying state of the bartender scene being a bit full of judgment at times, leading to a lot of drinkers being unwilling to admit they don't really know what they want to order. They may know their tastes and always default back to a tried-and-true choice like the old-fashioned or a French martini. If you're in a nice, cozy, smaller bar, and it's not too busy, talk to us. We love to help you find the exact drink for you, which may even mean a bit of experimentation behind the bar for us too. If a bartender isn't busy and isn't willing to help you find the drink for you, you're in the wrong bar. I tried to cover the alternatives and lesser-known options here, but as always, the Negroni, Manhattan, Old Fashioned, Martini, and other taste-defining classics are absolutely ones that you should give a go to. Also, Fernet Branca and Coke because it's the nectar of the gods. My measurements were in milliliters. For those curious, these cocktails are most easily found at a bar that actually calls itself a cocktail bar. Your average pub or dive bar might not have the materials for some of these, but when in doubt, ask. I'm in Sydney, Australia, and we're lucky to have a great small bar scene here. If you're in Sydney, search small cocktail bars and you'll definitely find something solid. A big tip is to ask the bartender for recommendations. There's a solid chance you'll either start off at the bar I work in or mine will be on the bartender's list somewhere. The scene down here isn't perfect, and if you feel like the service isn't friendly enough when it's not too busy, feel free to move along to another bar. Some places here are a bit guilty of that. Story 8. From my experience, a surprisingly huge amount of people haven't even heard about caipirinha, but it's one of the best drinks ever. Just don't go for the cheapest cachaca. Story 9. The last word. Equal parts gin, maraschino, green chartreuse, and lime juice. Shaken and served up. The stinger. 6 parts good, dry brandy, 1 part creme de menthe. Stirred and served over rocks normally, but I prefer mine up. And depending on the bar, a classic martini, 2 ounces of gin, 1 ounce of dry vermouth, 3 to 5 dashes of orange bitters. Stirred and served up with a lemon twist or single olive. Do not order this if they keep their vermouth at room temperature, or if they only have martini and Rossi or Gallo vermouth. Vermouth oxidizes more quickly when left out at room temperature. If they don't stock a quality vermouth, it usually means that they don't use it very often, and it will probably have gone sour. Story 10. Sazerac, it's a classic cocktail. Start a lowball glass with an absinthe rinse, and in a separate cocktail mix in glass stir rye whiskey, Peychaud's bitters, and a dash of simple syrup on ice. Strain back into the absinthe rinse glass and garnish with an orange peel. Go listen to some smooth jazz and sip. Story 11. Caipirinha. It is unlikely that your local bar will have the cachaca required to make it, but if you can find a bar that does, it is dangerously smooth. Just cachaca, sugar, and lime shaken and poured over ice. The drink is native to Brazil, and I have not had anything quite like it. Story 12. I give everyone a Snickers shot when they ask for a surprise or offer to buy me a shot because it's my favorite. 10 milliliters of Kahlua, 10 milliliters of Frangelico, 10 milliliters of Bailey's with salt shaken over the top make it taste much like a Snickers bar, and it is great for those who don't do well with the taste and burn of alcohol. Story 13, vodka soda. I'm serious. Decent vodka, very, very cold ice, very, very sparkling water, a wedge of lime, done. Edit. Alright, about the cold ice. Imagine Jeff, the ice cube. If Jeff is just barely frozen, he'll melt when you add the other ingredients, watering down your drink. Awful. But if Jeff is at minus 25 degrees Celsius, minus 13 degrees Fahrenheit, he'll first absorb 25 degrees Celsius, 45 degrees Fahrenheit, worth of heat before he even starts to melt. That's what makes the big difference in actually cooling down your drink instead of just watering it down. Having really cold ice, frosty instead of watery surface, makes any drink instantly taste 20% better. Oh, and edit, or lemon, whichever you like more. Lemon equals more fruity. Lime equals more bitter. Story 14, Tokyo tea for value drinking. Basically, a Long Island made with Midori instead of Coke. It's almost all liquor, depending on how they make it, you usually get a couple of shots worth for the price of one. And it's surprisingly palatable considering. Story 15, we used to play golf in my dorm room where every room is a hole, and the host of the room provides a drink for people. One day, I found this drink called Flaming Dr. Pepper that seemed interesting. Here is the recipe. 3 parts amaretto, 1 part high-proof liquor. I used 151 rum, 1 pint of beer. You pour the amaretto into the shot glass, followed by the high-proof liquor. You then light the alcohol on fire and drop the shot glass into the beer. It makes the beer taste just like Dr. Pepper, and it's amazing. Story 16, home bartender here. In the winter, nothing beats a hot buttered rum. Hot water, tea making temperature, about 6 ounces. Shot of dark rum, pat of butter, fresh grated nutmeg, fresh is a must. Cinnamon, dash of allspice, tablespoon of maple syrup, quick stir to melt the butter. Enjoy. Story 17, gin and sin, 2 ounces of decent gin, 1 ounce lemon juice, 1 ounce orange juice, splash of grenadine. Shaken and strained. Tastes so refreshing. Crisp and semi-tart sweet. Story 18, one of my favorites is penicillin, and I've only just started seeing it on more bar menus. Blended scotch, lemon juice, and a honey ginger syrup shaken and on ice with a super smoky Islay scotch floated on top. Story 19, mojito, what is underrated is making it the right way. Crushed ice, Cuban rum, properly muddled mint, not broken up, just pressed. It's remarkably refreshing and light. I didn't include all ingredients or the entire recipe, just highlighting the parts often done wrong. Glad to see some professionals elaborate on the technique, as it's the technique that separates a good mojito from a bad one, which is why I put this as underrated. A good one is underrated. Story 20. If I am busy, try a beer you have never had before because, frankly, I do not have time to listen to you half remembering the ingredients of a drink you had that one time in a foreign country. Story 21. Bartender and bar owner, let me tell you about the martini. Proper, traditional, excellent, and easy. Chill a martini glass by loading it with ice and water. In a shaker full of ice, pour in 1.5 ounces of your favorite gin. I find Watershed's 4 Peel Gin from Columbus, Ohio, to be my current favorite for this recipe, but use whatever gin you enjoy. Next, and this is crucial, add dry vermouth. It makes the drink a little oily and adds a slight sweetness and tang to counterbalance the gin's flavors. The amount is up to you. I use 1 ounce, making it a 3 parts gin and 2 parts vermouth martini. Stir this together in the ice. Don't shake it. It will look nice and homogeneous when you stir it. Dump the ice and water from the chilled martini glass. Take the peel of a lemon and rub the outer skin side around the rim of the martini glass. This adds an amazing aroma of citrus and will delight your nose. Strain the drink and serve with the lemon peel twist in the glass. Drink and look dapper in your local watering hole. Story 22. I'm a bartender who is about to open my own bar in a few months. I regularly attend cocktail competitions and have an encyclopedia of cocktail recipes stored in my memory. These drinks are simple, but almost everyone will like them. If someone is at my bar and they can't decide on a drink because they are an inexperienced drinker, I will whip one of these up. Simple syrup is just equal parts sugar and water, by the way. Gimlet 2 ounces gin or vodka, 1 ounce fresh lime juice, 1 ounce simple syrup. Daiquiri 2 ounces silver rum, 1 ounce fresh lime juice, 1 ounce simple syrup. Gin Ricky 2 ounces gin, 1 ounce fresh lime juice, 1 ounce simple syrup, 4 ounces soda water. Tom Collins 2 ounces gin, 1 ounce fresh lemon juice, 1 ounce simple syrup, 4 ounces soda water. O'Hara 2 ounces bourbon, 6 ounces ginger beer, 2 dashes orange bitters, orange slice. Manhattan 2 ounces rye whiskey, 1 ounce sweet vermouth, 2 dashes Angostura bitters. Ranch water 2 ounces Blanco tequila, 0.5 ounces Cointreau, 1 ounce fresh lime, 4 ounces soda water, salted rim. Substitute 0.5 ounces simple syrup for the soda water and you'll have the best margarita ever. Chilton 2 ounces vodka, 1 ounce fresh lemon, 4 ounces soda water, salted rim. Story 23, Lagavulin. I work in a pub in Scotland where I was born and raised, and it blows my mind how many people haven't tried this glorious whiskey. Yes, I might be biased, but I honestly think it's the best alcoholic drink ever made, haha. Try it with a few drops of water if you're not a whiskey drinker, or even if you are, as it is very peaty. It will change your view on peaty whiskeys. Story 24. Nothing better than a hot toddy when you have a cold. The warm water clears the congestion. The honey soothes the throat. The acid in the lemon clears it all out. And the whiskey numbs the body. Use high-quality whiskey. On a cold day, this drink will do wonders. Story 1. She said she stopped talking to him. Years later, she told me that I needed to see a counselor if it kept bothering me, because she had not talked to him in years, and my paranoia was a major issue in our relationship. Spoiler alert. She never stopped talking to him and gaslight me into thinking it was all in my head. Story 2. He would gaslight her and act inappropriately, considering he had a girlfriend and she was with me. She eventually realized that he is a snake and has massive issues around seeking attention from women for validation. She cut him out completely. Just yesterday, I saw that his girlfriend kicked him out of the house. Douchebag equals 0. Me equals 1. Story 3. I told her that it feels like he is just waiting for us to break up, so he can ask her out. She said I am being dramatic. We broke up. He asked her out within a few weeks. Sucks to be right in this context. Story 4. He became a dance instructor. He's always surrounded by women now, teaching salsa and tango at a popular studio downtown. Whenever I pass by, I see him effortlessly twirling his students, always with a flirty smile and a wink. It's almost comical how he's found a way to make flirting his full-time job. Story 5. Less than a week after we broke up, she got with the coworker she told me not to worry about. She came back telling me how horrible it was and said it made her realize how much she missed me and she only did it because she felt alone. It's been 9 months and I haven't looked back. I know she technically didn't cheat on me as we were broken up, but we were together for almost 2 years and it seems kind of quick to move on. She tried to justify her actions by saying her friends encouraged her to have fun and she's always looking for someone because she can't be alone. Her inability to be alone and work on herself without jumping to the next relationship without a second thought is what majorly turned me off from her. Sometimes I wish things were different, but I know I have enough self-respect not to take her back and to do better. Story 6. He was a great guy and a very good friend, and his partner he eventually met is awesome. He was a great person to hang out with. I'm no longer dating her, but still occasionally talk to him. Story 7. Turns out I didn't have to worry about him, because he wasn't into women. That being said, he made a flirty comment to me once, and it weirded my then girlfriend enough to make her ghost him. 7 years of friendship between those two. Gone because he commented on my boots making my legs look good. Story 8. He showed up to their just as friends dinner with flowers and asked her out. She came back embarrassed and said the friendship was over. She and I have been married a long time now. Story 9. He got her pregnant within a month of us breaking up and gave her herpes. Now they are divorced and fight and bicker constantly. I remember that phone call when she called to let me know she had herpes and that I should get checked. I smugly said, I don't need to. I've only ever slept with one other person. Then I went on to a year-long deployment in Iraq, returned, and dated you for a year. Unless you were sleeping around on me, which I know you weren't, then I don't need to. Her silence was hilarious. It got her to admit she slept around on me. Story 10. She broke up with me. A week later, she was with him. 6 months later, she came back from work to an empty apartment. He sold all her belongings and stole a significant amount of her money. I actually struggled not to laugh on the phone when she told me this. Story 11. She married him, had 2 kids, and they were a happy family until his gambling got the best of him. He lost his job, both became miserable, and now they are apparently headed for divorce. He apparently got sick, became depressed, and is on a bad path. Too bad. They were great together and we hung out several times. Story 12. Not long after she told me not to worry about him, she began accusing me of cheating whenever I wasn't answering the phone. It drove me nuts, so I broke up with her. And what do you know, she was seeing the guy. Story 13, he was a longtime friend. He was always interested and had occasionally suggested they get back together. Even though nothing was ever established, by putting her in misleading and awkward situations to guilt-trip her. Examples include invitations to public dance classes that turned out to be private tango lessons, a simple meal out that turned into reservations at a high-end restaurant, and threats of discarding expensive jewelry he offered her if she didn't accept them. When she and I got together initially, the first thing he did was break off his own engagement, thinking there was a chance for us to break up. She and I dated for a few years and they stayed friends. I finally proposed, and he went to her parents crying about it. He eventually found another woman and married her. We even got invited to the wedding, and has since dropped all contact. Story 14. He's in another United States state, married with 2 kids, and is a great guy. They have been close friends for decades but never dated. They still talk on the phone openly twice a year, and I sincerely look forward to our get-togethers. Solid dude all around. I could trust him with my children's lives. Story 15. She divorced me for him and he divorced his wife for her. They became cocaine addicts and broke up a year later. I would feel bad for them, but why would I? Story 16. She left me for him. She called me around a year ago, drunk and blubbering about some noise but wouldn't say what, and I couldn't be bothered to dig further. I looked her up on Facebook one evening out of boredom. Turns out he transitioned into a she. Story 17. She left me for him. She waited to graduate from school first, broke it off with me, and was already celebrating an anniversary with him before we were done. I think, but I'm not sure. Overall, I think it worked out really well for them. They got married and have a kid. It seems like she made the right choice, but it really destroyed me for a long time and probably still affects me to this day. I used to be really angry about it, but given the results, I can't stay mad about it. Plus, people change and that's not a problem, but still, be honest with people and don't cheat. It's pretty terrible. Story 18. She had an affair, asked for an open marriage, and when I wouldn't agree to that, she asked for a divorce. She got the divorce. But, surprise, surprise, things didn't work out between them, and she spent almost a decade running between men trying to find the one, after leaving me for her fling. Story 19. Different girls, mostly. There's always that guy. One came out as gay years later. Nothing happened before that, though. She went away for a weekend with a girlfriend of hers. The guy she said not to worry about just happened to be there, at the same house with all her college friends. She at least had the decency to break up with me when she got back before her friends told me what actually happened. She made out with the guy at a party, but he totally initiated it, and what was she supposed to do? Say no? Stop it? That would be absurd, right? This one was one of those we were on a break situations, but she left the club we both happened to be at to go see his car. I ended up giving her a lift home. I didn't enjoy that. During a relationship that had what was supposed to be a temporary long-distance portion, the guy showed up at the airport to surprise my girlfriend with roses when I went to go fetch her. They got married. She made out with the dude in her bedroom while I was in the lounge. They hadn't finished making out by the time I walked in on them. She married him. I've been single for a while now. Story 20. She keeps saying things like, "Oh, he is not a threat," and "Stop spending so much energy worrying about him." And "Jeff, that is your reflection. It's just a mirror. Please come out of the bathroom. What are you doing?" But I don't know. I just don't trust him. Story 21. She kept hiding the fact she was seeing him in private without my knowledge after we had a discussion about it like adults. I didn't feel comfortable. I saw a text message while she was driving, and it showed up on her notifications on the screen. I was in the passenger seat. We got into a heated argument, and our relationship was on and off. I was an emotional dunce when it came to romantic feelings and was in a toxic situation. I realized I was just an option for her and would always be second best. The feeling was terrible. It took 2 years to recover my emotional trauma and mental state. That was 5 years ago. Now I'm happily married. My advice, whether you are a man, woman, or other, is to take your time dealing with your emotions and trauma. A relationship won't make you happy and should not be the excuse for why. It's nice, feels nice, and everyone wants it in some shape or form, but your happiness is how you create it. Be yourself and be happy. Thank you for reading my rant. Story 22. I brought up the fact that he is gay. I thought everyone knew. It was just obvious to me. She thought that I was just insecure about their friendship and assured me that they were just friends. She would not hear anything from me about the fact that I was not jealous. I just genuinely thought that he was gay. He married another guy long after she and I broke up. Story 23. He is still one of my wife's best friends, and now one of mine too. He was in our wedding. I have no reason to think anything bad is happening. I know it's not interesting, but sometimes exes really do stay just friends. Story 24. She went on a 3-day camping trip with him and was radio silent from me. We broke up as soon as she came back to town. He beat her regularly. I'm glad she eventually got rid of him. Story 25. She left me for him because she could not contain her love for him anymore. He slept with her a few times, then dropped her. She spiraled into drugs, sex addiction, and an eating disorder. Story 26. She was intimate with him in the back of one of the zoo transport vans, using the shared work vibrator, her rampant rabbit, which, I guess, given the industry we all worked in, was the most appropriate of toys. Eventually, I found out she immediately ended things with me. She told him they were now exclusive. And he immediately ended things with her as he had no interest in a relationship and just enjoyed the thrill of being with someone else's girlfriend. He went back to his homeland and continued in the industry. She sent messages asking for us to meet and talk, which I ignored. She fell into a huge depression and attempted suicide. How sad. Story 27. I used to date this girl. She had a best friend, a huge nerd, not her type. I wasn't worried at all. They knew each other since middle school. I got to know him and we became friends. Fast forward almost 5 years later, she broke up with me. She had an affair and left me for him, but that's a different story. Most of the friends I got to know through her never even tried to reach out to me, but he did. We met and talked, and after a few beers, he told me how a year before, while I was on a family holiday in Egypt, she drunkenly tried to sleep with him, but he turned her down. I fully believe him, mostly because he cannot lie well. So, yeah, he turned out to be a better human being than she was. Story 28. She never told me not to worry about anyone in particular, but I was shocked by how many guy friends my wife had when we first started dating, who were obviously hoping it would turn into something more. She would introduce us. Me as her boyfriend, them as a good friend, and I could see the look in their eyes like, who is this dude? I thought I was going to be the one. Story 29. She said he reminds her of her father and that he's acting pathetic and desperate for her. She said that he gives her gifts for no reason and that it's awkward. She claimed he creeps her out and sometimes scares her, that he has his friends and a brother stalking her. He acted out plenty of times. One of the instances was when he and his friends with criminal records barged into her flat and started making a big fuss about why she's not into him. The police were called. He claimed that if he cannot have her, then no man ever will. Despite many of his childish, weird, or outright reportable acts, she continued being friends with him. She claimed I was the only normal person in her life at some point. All that happened in the span of 2 months or less earlier this year. Now I suspect that he moved in with her. Either she loves toxic relationships, or I don't understand women at all. Story 30. She promised he was just a friend. Since he lives in the United Kingdom and we are in the United States, there is nothing to be worried about. Surprised face when she breaks up with me, then moves to a different country to be with him. Last I heard, they only dated for a year or two. Then she got fired from her remote job, broke up with him, and is now living with her parents back in the United States. All of this after she would not move 2 states away to live with me. Dodged a bullet there. Story 31. An old friend of hers came back into her life, and after some talks and multiple were just friends. We ended up breaking up. We tried doing the whole friends with benefits thing for a bit. But after making the huge mistake of asking if the other guy was bigger than me, to which she answered honestly and in what was probably too much detail, I decided that it just wasn't going to work out. They got into a relationship and I blocked her on Facebook. Years later, I see the guy working at Dave & Buster's. Being friendly, I ask, "How's it going?" To which he responded with, "Well, not good." I apologized, saying that sucks, and then walked away. Every now and again, I'll think about her. But upon deeper reflection, I realized we were obviously going on 2 separate paths at that point in life. And although it hurt at the time, it was definitely for the best. Story 32. Turns out he had a big heart, high salary, nice car, hobbies, interests in education, positive attitude, a charming, outgoing personality, and was healthy, vigorous, tall, and classically handsome. Other than that, I'm not sure what she saw in him. Story 33. You mean his buddy's girlfriend that he said was just a friend? Yeah, they are married now. But last I heard, he was largely left out of a threesome with his wife and another woman at a Renaissance fair, so that's funny. Or my ex-husband who told me not to worry, he just fell asleep on my coworker's couch after walking her home on New Year's. He impregnated her, and they are married now. The child was premature with a bunch of health issues, and it has visibly aged them both. Or an ex-friend who was a bit too friendly with my boyfriend, and I was made out to be crazy for being jealous. They are married now. I honestly wish them happiness, as I think they are well suited to each other, and I don't mean that in a negative way either. Needless to say, I have very few people I trust, and the second I'm told not to worry about someone, I most definitely become hypervigilant about that person and the person telling me not to worry. Story 1. In 10 years of dealing with table games, I've seen people lose a lot of money until they cried at my table. Some people sat at machines and were still there the next day when I came to work, smelling terrible. A regular always brought her disabled child in a wheelchair and placed them next to her while she gambled for almost a day each time. I had a man with dementia at my table, and even with complaints, they still allowed him to play. He could barely make hand signals and kept forgetting we were in the middle of hands. It didn't help that he was tipping the beverage server generously, so he was overly served with alcohol. Reports on these individuals should have prevented them from continuing this behavior, but nothing ever changed. The worst incident was a few tables away from me when a man's girlfriend tried to get him to leave. He became so angry that he attempted to choke her right at the table. He fled from security into the woods behind the casino and took his own life. Story 2. Tuesday mornings. Barely reopened from the 4-hour weekly cleaning, and the folks on Social Security are already in, playing penny slots with the $10 left over in their budget. Story 3. I worked at a casino over a decade ago, but here's mine. Somebody won a small jackpot, something like $2,000. When checking her identification for tax paperwork, it was discovered that she had put herself on the state's problem gambler self-exclusion list, which meant the casino was obligated to remove her from the building without paying her. She wouldn't have been allowed in the building if she had been recognized. While double-checking, the manager downloaded an updated list. We checked against a local copy that was sometimes a few days out of date, and it showed that she had removed herself from the list with sufficient notice, so the jackpot was paid out. She proceeded to put every penny of the jackpot back into the slot machine and also made a couple of visits to the automated teller machine. At the end of her stay, She asked the cashiers if she could be put back on the self-exclusion list. Story 4. My first December working in the casino where I am still employed, I was on a blackjack table, and a man sat down and placed $1,565 on the table. He told the dealer, "Dealer, my family is about to have a great Christmas or no Christmas." 20 minutes later, the money was gone, and he asked the dealer if she was happy with herself and how well the casino must be paying her. I never saw the man again, as our casino consists of 95% repeat customers, so I would not be surprised if that actually was his Christmas money. Story 5. I didn't personally witness it, but in late 1999, I helped open the Motor City Casino in Detroit. A month later, an off-duty police officer lost everything and ended his life on the floor. Story 6. I was driving cross-country for work and stopped in West Memphis for the night. I went to the casino to burn a few hours. From my machine, I saw a lady playing slots with tears running down her face. I heard her scream and looked up to realize the machine hit zero, and she started bawling uncontrollably. She was screaming that she had nothing left and to please have her money back. She got removed by security. I hit for $150 and cashed out, but the walk to my car was terrifying. I'm not a target demographic for mugging, but the desperation on people's faces was noticeable. Never going there again. Story 7. Ex-casino worker here. I saw way too many people spend ridiculous amounts of money on gambling. I've seen little kids asleep in chairs outside the casino floor because their parents were busy gambling. A gentleman had a heart attack at a poker table, and other gamblers were upset because we had to stop the game so emergency medical services could come. The saddest one, though, was a lady who wanted to cash a check made out to the electric company. She wanted to know if she could scratch out the company name and write in the casino name. I told her we could not do that. Story 8. Back when casino boats used to actually cruise the river, every Friday night there was a guy who would grab a $1 poker machine, feed a $100 bill, lay his face down and hit the maximum bet. Rinse and repeat 1, 2, 5 times. Once we saw 10 times. Never saw him win a penny. Cruises were 1 hour and 15 minutes. He took about 10 to 25 minutes max, would get done, and leave the machine to take a seat by the gangway exit. Story 9. I worked a whole host of positions in casinos over the course of 6 to 7 years. In that time, I saw a lot of really funny, really sad, and really frustrating things. The one that hurt me the most was seeing the father of one of my high school friends coming in over the course of the years. He started showing up every now and then when I was 19 and had my first job there. He was an older man in his late 50s to early 60s, but still pretty healthy, had a lot of money, drove a nice car, had a nice house, and even owned a small plane that he flew recreationally. Slowly but surely, he was coming in more and more frequently, though. He started gaining more weight, looking more pale and sickly, and drank almost constantly. It turned out that his home situation was going downhill fast. He and my friend, his son, had a massive falling out, and eventually, his wife left him and took their daughter with her. He had nothing left but his money and himself, and even that didn't last. He was never winning anything and had to have lost millions in that time frame. He was in the building for days at a time without moving from his machine. Because of that and the amount of alcohol he was consuming combined with the lack of sleep, aging body, and constant secondhand smoke exposure, his health was quickly plummeting. He was always nice and happy to talk to anyone, but even that didn't last as he started snapping at every little thing and not interacting with anyone at all. I left that job years ago, but every now and then my family will go back to that same casino and see him at his same machine looking like a husk of his former self. Even now, that is heartbreaking to me. Gambling addiction is a dangerous, horrible thing, but you never really realize just how bad it is until you see someone you've known your entire life driven to the very brink by it. Story 10. Worked valet at a casino. One night we got the car, and they dropped it off. Left the keys in normal here. I hopped in to move it, and it smelled like death. I moved the car and informed my supervisor. He called the police as it was the smell of a decaying body. The police came and we opened the trunk, which was full of groceries from 4 months ago, in the Missouri summer heat. It was chicken. They came to claim their car and were told not to park here in valet again. They said the person who normally carries their groceries up to their second-floor apartment left, and they don't have anyone to help them anymore. So now they go to casinos and eat out every night. They didn't have money to do this, no idea where it came from. I will never gamble or go to a casino after working valet those years. Many more stories. Story 11. Casino worker here, winning big can ruin your life. It's like a drug, and I have seen so many people try to chase that high again. They start at higher denomination machines, and slowly over time, you see them move to $1.50, 25 cents, and eventually down to the lowest level. Story 12. I spent a lot of time in the casino. My dad had a gambling problem. It's sad to watch your hero fall, but he pulled himself out and away from that. But the things I've seen, I saw a blind Chinese man come in with his bodyguards to help him gamble. I've seen couples blow their entire money and just stand there looking at each other, half in tears. I sat next to a woman who lost it all and just couldn't bring herself to get off the chair because reality wasn't setting in. My dad used to really hit it big, and once he would make me play on one machine while he played on the other. His was losing and mine started winning big. I got shoved off that seat so fast. I don't miss that place. It's full of greed and misery. Story 13. We had a roulette and blackjack table room that was connected with a nightclub I worked in. There was this guy who spent more money than I made in 2 months in just a few hours. He wasn't drunk. I tried to get him to stop playing, he was the only player at the table. But he just said he is lonely and playing blackjack was the only thing that made him feel okay. He was far away from home. I think he was Russian, and just really, really sad. It was tough to watch. His face looked just as vacant when he left as when he started playing. So sad. Story 14. I am not a casino worker. I was at a bar on the casino floor, and an elderly man in a suit and hat sat down a few seats over and started talking to the bartender. They made small talk, and then he mentioned that his wife of 50 years had died of cancer a few weeks beforehand. He said they never had kids and not many friends, so he took all the savings they had and came to Las Vegas to have some fun until the money runs out. Then he'd be going home to be with his wife. The bartender never followed up on it, but just kind of let him drink. I just awkwardly kept scrolling on my phone. What do you even say to that? Story 15. I had a customer walk up to me as a slot attendant with 4 quarters in his open palm. He asked if I had any idea about any machine that might be ready to pay out. He explained he had driven a little over 2 hours to get to the casino, and this was literally all the money he had left. He hadn't bothered to fill the gas in his car, and it didn't have enough to get him home. The best I could tell him was one particular bank of machines had several decent payouts, but that was about all I could say, as even slot attendants don't have much idea when any particular machine is going to hit. I got called off to another customer. I don't think he even won enough to buy some gas. Story 16. A couple of jumpers have jumped off the top of the parking garage every few years. A man hanged himself in the bathroom. Security and maintenance saw a lot more than I did as a slot technician. I just heard about it. I didn't walk in on it. Story 17. When I was single and childless, I had a lot more money, so I would frequent the casino a lot. Once, I saw an infant in a car seat covered in a blanket, moving around in an unattended car in the parking garage. Security had already been alerted, and the parents were found inside at the slot machines. They were arrested and made the news that night. Story 18. Not a casino worker, but still a sad story. Managed an apartment portfolio decades ago, and one of the properties was in Las Vegas. Keep in mind that this was before the days of paying your rent online. We had a zero cash collection policy, but the manager of the property told everyone it was lifted for the month to help boost our collections. The perfect storm happened on a Friday that aligned with a lot of paydays. She collected about $80,000, roughly $150,000 in today's dollars, in cash for rent, and then went to the casino and put it all on red. Her thinking was that she would double it, then deposit the $80,000 on Monday, and nobody would ever know the difference. She did not win. Monday comes around, and I see that the money didn't get to the bank, so I call the property. Nobody has seen the manager. Alarm bells immediately ring in my head. I fly to Las Vegas. We eventually found her at someone's house and called the police. So stupid. Story 19. Oh man, I have a ton from my 15 years as a casino manager, but I'll just write a few and come back later. A woman who was an anesthesiologist assistant hit a bad beat jackpot at a 1-2 no-limit poker table for around $120,000. For non-poker players, this is the lowest stakes no-limit hold'em game offered by most poker rooms. The buy-in range was from $100 to $300 minimum and maximum at our room, so by poker standards not terribly high. After she hit the jackpot, she started playing the bigger games, first 2-5 no-limit, $200 to $1,000 buy-in, and then moving up to 5-10 no-limit, $500 minimum, and I believe at the time it was no maximum. Next thing you knew, she was out playing in the high-stakes blackjack pit, playing $100 a hand. She got bumped up to a black card quickly from all the blackjack she was playing. Fast forward about 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 2 months tops, and we don't see her around as much. A few players asked if we'd seen her, and a couple let it be known that she borrowed money from them and hasn't repaid it. She started showing up late at night wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses and playing slots. Shortly after, security determined that she had been living out of her car and sleeping in the parking garage. The fall went quick. It was just like all the lottery winner horror stories I'd seen on TV but playing out in real time. Story 20. Former casino worker of 20 years. I've seen a lot of things, but this one stands out to me. I was the games manager on shift, and there was a lady in her 40s playing blackjack. She had been there a few hours and had made quite a few trips to the automated teller machine, and her buy-ins were getting into the thousands of dollars. I was doing paperwork in the pit when a dealer called me over while the lady was on another automated teller machine trip and said she was crying just before. I kept an eye on her, and after she lost a few more hands, I could see the tears start, and she was silently crying while playing. I went up and, as discreetly as possible, asked her if she was okay and offered help through our Partnered Addictions Help program. She looked me right in the face and got mad at me for asking and told me she's fine and to leave her alone. She was making staff very uncomfortable at that time, and it was obvious she was crying more and more as she continued to play and lose. I made the decision to ask her to leave for the night and covered her cab ride home. I tried again to offer her information to organizations to help with her gambling again, but she was still not interested. Addictions are heartbreaking to see, and I really hope she was able to get help. Story 21. Not a casino employee, but I used to work at a bank. Had a customer asking about something on her account, so I was reviewing her statement and saw these frequent $2,000 withdrawals at the casino nearby. In the one statement I was looking at, there were over $10,000 in withdrawals, and this customer's total account balance was somewhere around $60,000. I started going backward in her statements and found she had sold a house and received something like $700,000 less than a year ago, and had steadily gambled it almost all away, month by month. It was one of the most depressing things I saw there, which is saying a lot at a bank. Story 22. My dad was a security guard at a casino for 15 years and he has stories. When he started working there, the chairs at the slot machines were made of cloth. They had to change them to vinyl because people would not get up to go to the bathroom, and they would urinate and defecate all over the chairs. People would sneak their kids into the hotel in luggage when children were not allowed. Others left them in the car in the parking garage. One guy took a loan out against his house to gamble and lost it all. He dropped dead in the casino. People would literally spend days gambling in the same clothes. People would beg for money at the exits of the highway, pretending to be homeless, and use the money to gamble. I could keep going. Edit. The casino my father worked at did not allow children on the premises, period. If yours does, then good for you. Story 1. I've been out of the game for a few years, but I'll name 2 that really annoyed me. If you can afford to not use dollar store garbage bags, please do so. They tear easily and make a huge mess that I then needed to clean up. And don't fill them with heavy cat litter. Second, broken glass goes in a taped-up box, not the garbage bag. No one likes getting stabbed by random glass hidden in a garbage bag. Story 2. Do not park in no parking zones or right next to tight alleyway entrances or exits. Please put dirty diapers in garbage bags instead of leaving them loose in the can. We cannot always collect mattresses, long pipes, or pallets. Please understand that we do not make those decisions. Some are made by our bosses, others by the laws of physics. Put your needles in a sharps disposal container. Story 3. Mine asked me to move my cans from under the sweeping tree limb. I just did not even realize it was in the way. It was, though. Moved my cans. Apologized. Thankful they take away my trash. Story 4. I worked for a parks department for a time, and I was the one to empty the garbage cans in all of the parks in the city. It's not very big. Putting things like whole vacuum cleaners, drug stashes, garbage bags full of household garbage, dead things, broken glass, bulk frozen items, unfinished dairy-based liquids are not cool. Story 5. Literally, just don't be a jerk. You know not to put sand, concrete, tiles, or anything like that into your trash can. If you struggle to pick up or move something, don't put it in your can for someone else to lift, along with your trash from the past week. I worked as a garbage collector for a few years, and I had to go on workers' compensation for herniating 3 discs because someone filled their can with sheetrock and tile and covered it with loose paper. If you're going to do that, let me see it so I can prepare myself to pick it up. Putting too much weight in your can has the potential to change someone's life drastically forever. I know I could have prevented it by not taking the can, but I had already lifted it when I realized, and it was too late. We didn't have hydraulic lifts, so I had to do it all by hand. Lifting 2,000 to 3,000 cans a day is rough. Also, for specifics, any pressurized air cans can and will explode and have a high chance of seriously hurting the people on the back of the truck. Story 6. Based on a warning that could have been a fine I got while my mother-in-law lived with me, use bags. Don't pour cat litter directly in the bin. Edit. It was her. She had the cat, but I got the warning because of her. I didn't do this. Goddamn guys, I guess I wasn't clear. Story 7. Just about every garbage company has instructions on what can be recycled in their jurisdiction. Different places have different rules. It takes only a few minutes to seek this information out and save valuable human resources in fixing people's lazy mistakes. Story 8. Not a garbage man, but worked in a safety role for a waste collection company. Please use your bins correctly. If general waste goes into a cardboard collections bin, for example, the entire lot of cardboard waste has to go to general disposal instead of recycling. In the worst-case scenario, if you're disposing of solvents, oil, etc., instead of doing the right thing and taking them to the local dump or arranging a specific pickup of hazardous goods, you could cause a fire. And it should go without saying, but please don't dispose of explosive materials in general waste. Estimated time of arrival. Something relevant to the post. Most common difficult client complaints I've heard are 1. Domestic bins are too far away from the curb and have to be moved into position, which wastes time and causes injury depending on how heavy bins are or how many they have to move on any given day. Domestic bins are too full, which can end up throwing trash around the place, or bags are placed outside of the bin. If you have a considerate driver, he'll pick them up too. But he doesn't have to. Commercial dumpsters have to be dragged uphill, across rough ground, or over drains to get to the pickup position, which wastes time and causes injury. A lot of injury incidents arise from drivers having to drag the dumpsters out so they can pick them up. Commercial dumpsters are overfilled, which causes the same issues but to a greater extent. So mainly pull your bins to the curb if they're domestic or to an easily accessible area if they're commercial. You only have to pull your bins once. If everyone's bins need moving, that driver is moving hundreds of bins per day. Story 9. My father was a garbage man for a suburban area near Chicago. He always stressed safety over anything else. They regularly have safety checks and watch videos and seminars often, especially for driving above all else. They are masters at defensive driving, but accidents happen. You should always be respectful of their space because they have your best interests in mind. Please understand these trucks weigh several tons in a compact area. If you cut them off in harsh weather, you may have just given them a mini heart attack. A small shout out to all those sanitation workers. I respect you. As a child, I never understood those who demean what you do. I watched my father wake up at 3:30 a.m. almost every day and not return home until after 6 p.m. The hundreds of pounds of unauthorized bulk he would toss to be nice. The injuries he got for doing it. The heat. the cold, the rain, the traffic, the holidays. Anyways, you guys are amazing. Try not to let addiction overcome you. You're heroes. Love you, Dad. Tip your garbage men on holidays. Story 10. My boyfriend has been a garbage man for over 10 years, and the stuff he tells me is nuts. Everything in your can should be in a bag. Dog waste, cat litter, feminine hygiene products, cigarette butts, and ashes. Stop putting chemicals in the garbage. Every year, my boyfriend and his coworkers get exposed to gas and end up with chemical burns because people are too lazy to look up how to properly dispose of chemicals. Stop. It's so dangerous and only takes 5 minutes to look up the right way to get rid of it. For the love of God, please rinse out your can once in a while. Getting covered in hot garbage juice and maggots is disgusting, and the smell is incredibly difficult to get rid of. You don't have to scrub your can out. Just hose out the inside at least once every summer. The guys and gals will be super thankful and more inclined to run your can up to your garage for you and more likely to take stuff they would normally have to tag and leave. They are people too. Treat them the way you would want to be treated. Their job is tough enough. Story 11. Damn, we must all have very different garbage services. Recycling, composting, picking up bags by hand? We just get a large green bin we can put out twice a week. If it's not inside the bin, it doesn't go because they don't even get out of the truck. If you have extra, you haul it off yourself to the dump or transfer station. Story 12. Please, for the love of whatever deity you might worship, secure your pool cleaners and stop hiding your car, motorcycle, and other batteries in trash bags. I'm sorry you don't want to dispose of them properly, but it will be a bad day for you and me if I have to dump my entire truck's contents on your street because you or your neighbor's trash didn't play nice and started a chemical fire, and I didn't want the truck to explode. Story 13. Living in a high-density city, one thing that annoys me to no end, and probably also the garbage collectors, are the frequent apartment dumps. We have several large metal dumpsters in the back alley, and it seems like every month someone moves out and tries to cram all their furnishings into the dumpsters. They pack all of the building's dumpsters full of their belongings, and anything that won't fit gets tossed on the ground or leaned against one of the buildings. The garbage collectors hate this, and so do the tenants. They only grab one item off the ground per week. Dumpster divers come through and grab some stuff, but it usually takes a long time for the junk to clear. Story 14. Not me, but my dad. It's a super thankless job. Around the holidays in the early 2000s, people would often run out with a small gift, such as a card, gift card, or handmade item. It meant the world to him when people did that. However, he told me over the past decade the gifts have stopped altogether, and now people only come out to ask him to take extra bags of garbage. So my 2 cents is, do something small and nice for your garbage man and mail carriers. Story 15. Not a garbage man, but I was a janitor for a year. Please, for the love of all that is good in this world, do not vomit in trash cans. It is literally better for the vomit to be on the ground than for it to be in a trash can. It is the nastiest and most horrible thing to deal with, trying to get a bag out of a trash can when there is vomit in it. Imagine if there is a hole in the bag. There, I have said my piece, I will make peace with it now. Story 16. I remember when I was a teenager, and we had something that wouldn't fit in the can. My mom would write for the garbage men on a paper bag full of beer and put it by the bins. They always picked up the extra for us. Story 17. When I was a garbage woman, I used to hate people who piled as much as they could on top of the bin. The funny part is the company I worked for decided it was an occupational health and safety problem, so we just put a sticker on the front of the bin and left it. Story 18. In Nova Scotia, it is a requirement to sort garbage. Compost, paper recyclables, plastic recyclables, and garbage in a clear bag. Your garbage is rejected if you do not sort it properly. The compost, however, is difficult to monitor, so plastic often gets thrown in and missed. A wrapper on a cucumber, random pieces of plastic wrap, etc. When I learned through an educational session, it was someone's job to sort through maggot-infested compost and sort it because so many pieces of plastic were getting thrown in. Learning that this elderly gentleman was in a room where maggots even fell from the ceiling while searching for a plastic wrapper I was too lazy to remove made me a bit more careful with what went in my compost. Story 19. If you're driving behind the truck and someone is currently emptying the bins, do not tailgate the truck. I know it's annoying to wait, but that won't make anything faster. Instead, it makes it more dangerous for the garbage man and yourself if the bin becomes loose while the mechanism lifts it. Don't overfill your bins. If you have more material than usual, put it in a bag beside the bin, maybe together with a small gift like apple juice or chocolate. But don't be mad if they won't take it. Sometimes the trucks are just overloaded, but usually if it's possible, they will take your extra stuff if you just ask nicely and maybe offer a small gift. Don't call the company to complain if there are 2 leaves remaining in your bin. Garbage men have to empty about 750 to 1,000 bins on a long day. Don't expect them to look into every bin after emptying it, and they will have to come back for your 2 leaves even though they would have come back 2 weeks later anyway. If you forget to put your bin on the curbside in time, don't call the company and tell them that you forgot to empty their bin. It's your responsibility to get your bin outside in time, and if every other bin in that street is empty, it's usually pretty obvious that you just forgot. Don't park in front of heavy containers. It makes it horribly difficult to get them behind the truck, and if you're unlucky, your car will get damaged in the process, making everyone's life more difficult. And most important, just try to be nice. I'm a student that works as a garbage man for a couple of months each year in my semester breaks, and I can really feel how people treat me very differently when I'm wearing my garbage man clothes, and not in a good way. Everybody who works there isn't just a stupid idiot. They all have interesting life stories, are hardworking husbands and fathers, and without them, you would drown in your garbage. So, just don't be unkind and think that you are something better. Story 20. I had to unfortunately explain to my garbage guys that animal control in my town charges you for getting rid of dead animals in your own yard. My roommates had 3 big dogs between them, so birds and squirrels were sometimes found, usually after garbage got picked up for the week. I had to keep apologizing because we couldn't afford the fee. They were really nice about it. As long as you double or triple bag it, we won't notice. Story 21. I used to work in a recycling sorting center. A simple rinse of cans and items you put in recycling makes a difference. It's small, but it's the difference between batches of nasty, moldy, smelly items on the line to sort through versus when you get a batch of items that have been cleaned prior to being disposed of, which is nice. Story 22. Following the aftermath of the 4th of July, we had a ton of garbage. Our 2 garbage bins were packed along with a large pile of debris. We just went out when we heard the truck down the street and helped them throw everything into the back of the garbage truck. The 2 men thanked us and said they wished other people would do that once in a while when they had that much trash. Anyways, thanks to all the garbage men in this board. Story 23. I drive a sweeper truck and I empty bins outside of some businesses. Please, for the love of God, don't throw bricks or concrete blocks in the trash. I have to pick them up and throw them in the hopper of the truck, and when rocks and blocks of concrete fall out, it can hurt or kill someone. Also, please stop throwing your kids' diapers and bottles full of urine all over commercial parking lots. Just because you get to drive away from it doesn't mean no one has to deal with it. It's trashy and extremely unsanitary. Story 24. If you leave milk out, it can go sour. Put it in the refrigerator or failing that, a cool, wet sack. And put your garbage in a garbage can, people. I can't stress that enough. Don't just throw it out the window. Story 25. I'm an occasional garbage woman on a voluntary basis, so this might not be meant entirely for me. But if I could give one piece of advice, it would be pretty simple. Please be considerate. Say hi and be nice instead of just dumping your trash at my feet. Make sure your garbage bags, if you don't have a bin, are tied, whole, clean, and not too heavy for me to carry. Luckily, I am in a position to decline trash if it's not up to our, so to say, standards, but I do feel for the professionals who, on a daily basis, are just taken for granted. Story 26. My brother is a garbage man. His thoughts. 1. Put your cans out correctly, facing the right way, a few feet apart, and not overfilled. Stop leaving extra garbage and large items out with your trash. Get better at recycling. Some things require special recycling centers, and some things aren't recyclable no matter how much you wish they were. When you call claiming I missed your house because you forgot to put your can out, I have to go back and pick it up. It's a pain, we all know you lied, and the next time the wind knocks your can over and there are trash bags all over the ground, I'll leave it there. Story 1. As a software engineer, rather than remotely connecting, I could just dial in and download 100 to 200 kilobytes of source code and work on it at home. Security was not a real issue then. DOS text-based software. Story 2. Every box of cereal would have a limited edition collectible mystery mask in it that you have to submerge in water for an hour to activate the filter or something like that. Story 3. As someone who was in high school during 1990, I can say that I think things would have been far worse. People would have had to go to work or not be paid. My mom worked in an office, and there was no way she could have worked remotely. My stepdad was in sales, and you couldn't really do that from home. You think the run on toilet paper was bad this past year? Imagine no internet or social media, and smaller grocery stores, and everyone panicking because they are getting some War of the Worlds type vibe from the network news. Phone lines would have definitely crashed because a strong storm could still take them out. Long-distance calling, at least in the United States, was still expensive, so no hanging on the phone with your friends either. No internet, no streaming services like Netflix. Blockbuster would have been sold out in about 5 minutes. There would have been homeschooling, but it would have really underlined the class divide. Rich kids usually had encyclopedias and lots of books around. Poor kids did not. Most homework involved reading books or looking things up, either in encyclopedias or in the library. I would bet that libraries would have closed. No online shopping means all the things we're having delivered now, like masks and groceries, would have to be purchased by someone going out and getting them. I also agree that martial law would have been a real possibility, if only for crowd control. Finally, for all that we gripe about things, the internet and mobile phones have been an equalizer of sorts, giving us all a way to connect and stay entertained during lockdown. I'm thinking back to my house in 1990, and I would have gone through every book in the house about 45 times by now at least. We didn't have a Nintendo, and we didn't have a computer. We had a very old typewriter, but I'm sure that would have gotten old in about a week. If the library stayed open, then maybe there would have been a glimmer of hope. But with limited phone time and no texting or social media, I feel like small neighborhoods would have banded together in unforeseen ways, some good and some isolating. If you were living in a very poor area, it might have made it worse. If you were very wealthy, it might be like now, where you didn't really notice any real difference, just minor inconveniences. On the plus side, I think the government would have been far more motivated for stimulus payments because people could not work remotely, so they either risked spreading disease or staying home. With not many kids having computers or video games, creativity would have soared because kids have been entertaining themselves in less than ideal conditions since time began. Yes, microwaves and dishwashers were around. My point was that they were a lot more expensive than they are today. We didn't have either, nor did anyone I knew. We got our first microwave in 1991, and it was a hand-me-down from a relative. It also worked only sporadically. We also didn't have video games. I guess today I learned I grew up a lot poorer than I ever thought. Story 4. No lockdowns. The speed at which we got the vaccine is straight-up science fiction compared to what was possible in the 1990s. Sequencing the genome alone would have taken ages. Even after less than a year, everyone is about at the end of their rope. In the 1990s, it would have had to have been stretched over multiple years, so they would have just not done it and hoped for the best. Story 5. No remote learning, no remote working, and a vaccine that would have taken much longer to create. Probably would have resulted in many more deaths even without social media spreading misinformation. People still had conspiracy theories. They just spread slower back then. Might have forced wealthy countries into basic income, while poorer countries would have suffered even more. Story 6. Considering that people wouldn't have social media to air their opinions on, nor the modern-day streaming services, nor Amazon, I think we'd be doing a much worse job of social distancing or similar measures. The biggest difference, however, would be that most people who had no problem doing their job from home on a laptop in 2020 would actually still have to show up at their workplace in 1990. The same is true for students and remote learning. It wouldn't have worked. Story 7. I wonder how much it would spread in the first place. It feels like there was a big jump in mobility in the last 30 years, so it's possible that it would not have spread as far in the first place. However, let's assume it did reach your neighborhood. On the downside, the internet was not really in widespread use, so no work or school from home and you would have to interact with others. However, on the upside, no internet means no social media spreading false information. There were only a small number of news outlets, and while they weren't perfect, I think they would have given better information than what some people are getting now. There would have been very few claims that it's all a hoax on network television back then, so the general public might take it more seriously. I think President George H.W. Bush would also have taken it seriously, so having the president on television telling you that there is a problem does a lot to convince people that there's a problem. Story 8. Think AIDS. Think how accurate the science was on AIDS initially. Think how people call some of that information ridiculous now and are amazed that people could have thought that way. We even have a common factor in the two diseases in Anthony Fauci. Think about how that affected sex education and supported the push for abstinence-only education. Story 9. Princess Diana would talk about the importance of wearing a mask, and then more people would wear masks too. She helped destigmatize HIV and AIDS. Before her, there was a huge stigma that it could be spread through human contact. Story 10. I have read quite a bit on how the COVID-19 vaccine was made. We relied a lot on research that started in 2005. If this had happened in the 1990s, we would not have gotten a vaccine so fast. There is a misconception that we developed the vaccine too quickly. However, we actually have years of research on it. In 2005, a man started working in his lab to create a vaccine for Middle East respiratory syndrome, which is another type of coronavirus. It wasn't as contagious and basically got swept under the rug, but this individual created the first RNA coronavirus vaccine. We basically just took that research and plugged in the new virus, kind of like how you can plug numbers into an equation that we know is true. This person spent 10 years trying to make the first RNA vaccine, and using his research, we were able to make a working vaccine before COVID-19 was considered a global pandemic. The rest was just perfecting it and testing it. We took no shortcuts when it came to medical trials. We just had a great head start from someone who was interested in Middle East respiratory syndrome. If COVID-19 had happened in 1990, there is a good chance it would have taken years to come up with a vaccine instead of months. We are pretty lucky. I wrote this right before bed, so I didn't get to see this blow up. I'm sorry I didn't do my best writing. I have dyslexia, so sometimes details get really fuzzy and my spelling is not great. I was not just writing about Catalin Carrico, though. She did good research starting in the 1980s. The part 1 was really highlighting was research done by Nianshuang Wang and Jason McClellan. They worked with the Middle East respiratory syndrome virus. Catalin Carrico did not. Catalin Carrico worked more with RNA on its own. Both of these instances were stories of important research not getting funded because it was not deemed important or life-saving enough. Also, all the Middle East respiratory syndrome research done by Nianshuang Wang and Jason McClellan was based on Catalin's research. All three of them worked with either Pfizer or Moderna on the vaccine. I think some people here liked good articles. If you want something to listen to, I would go with the Boulder versus Hill episode of the This American Life podcast. The first half of the episode is about the wild forest firefighters in California, and the second half is about Jason and Nianshuang's research. I'm sorry if I focused on one more than the other or forgot names. I think there are a lot of contributors to creating the vaccine. I really did look into this a lot, but with my dyslexia, it is way easier for me to understand stuff when I also have interesting audio information to rely on. Story 11. Well, there wouldn't be armchair doctors on Facebook spreading misinformation and conspiracies about COVID-19 not being real. So maybe people would actually socially distance and wear masks without claiming their liberties are being infringed upon. Story 12. Well, that was the start of the United States going to Desert Storm at the end of 1990 and 1991, so that would be very interesting during that time. There was not as much social media going on, so there would be less fear spreading so quickly, and we would have had toilet paper and paper towels lasting longer. Story 13. Being stuck at home would be a lot more boring. No video streaming. Also, no remote work because the internet just wouldn't be able to handle the capacity, even if people could set up computers at home. Windows 3.1 would not have been released yet in 1990, so you had Apple computers and that was about it. And it was 24K modems, not even 56K yet, so everything would be slow. Maybe if all you did was paperwork, a fax machine could work, but not well. In short, more people would be infected because more people would need to gather together for work. More people would get bored and go to video stores and libraries. Schools wouldn't be able to close unless the entire area closed because young kids can't study alone at home. It would be a huge issue and a lot worse, especially considering less advanced medical technology. I don't think getting a vaccine out for a coronavirus within a year would have even been possible in 1990. Story 14. The economy would have really taken a larger hit from people not being able to go to work and shop online. There would be fewer deaths and serious cases because of the much smaller percentage of overweight and obese Americans. There would be fewer free spaces for anti-mask proponents to broadcast their latest conspiracy theories, meaning there would likely be more mask compliance. There would likely be higher levels of depression due to the lack of technological capabilities like video calls and online meetings. There would be a quicker response from the President and Congress than there has been in 2020 due to fewer obstructionists. There would have been more criticism toward the gay community because of the stigma attached to HIV and AIDS in 1990, which probably would have been associated with COVID somehow. Story 15. The main difference would be the medical response and time to develop a vaccine. Medical technology has come a long way and many countries are much more prosperous today. As for everything else, it depends on how equal you want to make things. If you assume the virus originated in China, then in 1990 it's unlikely the virus would have left the country for the same reason Middle East respiratory syndrome never became a pandemic. It was a poor country and almost nobody traveled to or from it. Misinformation would still be present, but you would have received it through the mail, fax, over the phone, and through normal conversation. For example, I do not use social media, and I know all about the misinformation as well as other conspiracy theories like flat earthers and fifth-generation technology, because I hear it from people and it's reported on and corrected through reputable media outlets. Story 16. This is a pandemic that the United States specifically was uniquely well-equipped to mishandle, despite knowing what needed to be done and how to do it. Others have discussed social media spreading misinformation. However, the primary method of containing this virus relies on doing things for the benefit of others at a time when the United States is more divided than ever. I truly think we would have fared far better in 1990, especially considering we would have had a more competent leader at the helm. That said, I do not believe a vaccine would have been made as quickly, so I think it could have lingered for an extended period instead of coming in such deadly waves. Story 17. 1990 wasn't an election year, so definitely less politicization. No social media and greater power in local press and news led to less misinformation. Between these two factors alone, I would say you would have a better unified effort in local communities. Regardless of the advances we have today, we would have less noise. That would drive fewer competing judgments, slowing down progress and understanding. Holding the 99% or so survival rate constant, I would say it would have been better managed. Hypotheticals. Story 18. You too would have had an epic global music festival in Berlin in which people cried. The event was televised and raised millions of dollars. Nearly everyone in the world took COVID-19 seriously, and the anti-maskers would have never existed. Story 19. Without social media for people to share their insane theories and propaganda, I think everyone would have taken the pandemic much more seriously. We would not have seen the issues with wearing masks or getting the vaccination that we see now. Plus, we would have had a president that was not useless and a Congress that still knew how to compromise. The main issue would have been that it would be almost impossible for most people to work from home. No remote learning. No streaming media to keep us entertained. Story 20. Well, the name would be different, COVID-89, since I'm going to assume it started at the end of 1989, as this time it started at the end of 2019. So maybe people wouldn't as readily believe there were 88 other iterations of the virus before this one, because I'm assuming tabloids would run that story. Story 21. We wouldn't have a vaccine yet. Most of us, including myself until recently, aren't aware of the persistent work of a researcher on the initial development of a vaccine for the Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus. After years of work, he was successful. 5 science journals rejected his paper, finding it had low relevancy. The belief was a flu strain would cause a pandemic, not coronavirus. The 6th publishing attempt succeeded, and a few years later, here we are. Guess whose research was licensed to Pfizer and Moderna? Nianshuang Wang and his partners, rejected by 5 journals, told their work wasn't relevant, now saving the world. This American Life covers them in episode 727. So yes, we have a vaccine in record time, except for the fact it's based on research that took years to complete. As always, the real heroes are invisible. Story 1. I'm a white man married to a black woman. I had no idea about the whole culture of hair upkeep for black women, how much it costs, how much time it takes, and how much it's a connection point for her and other women. Interestingly, what was a bigger adjustment had nothing to do with race. I'm an only child, and she is one of 5, so obviously the family dynamics are quite different. Next month, we will be married for 24 years, so I guess it's all good. Story 2. An ex was Latina, and while there really weren't any social things that were new, getting used to her family dynamic took some adjusting because they were very close and involved in each other's lives. It was normal for the weekend's inevitable barbecue to be something I was expected to attend if she was going, because otherwise more than 16 people would question her about my absence. Story 3. I was born and raised in the Netherlands. I'm half Italian and half Indonesian, but did not grow up with those cultures at home, except a little. My girlfriend is Persian. In the Netherlands, or at least in my experience, when people say no to something, they mean no. While apparently for Persians, it's seen as polite to decline at least the first offer, often also the second, even if you really want it. For example, if she would offer me a cookie and I'd say no, she would ask another 3 times before letting it go, which was cute but also annoying. Meanwhile, when I offer her a cookie and she says no, I just quit asking, and then she gets a little mad that I didn't ask her a couple of times more. It's not the biggest difference or anything, but it's a cute, and in the beginning, very confusing difference. Edit. Wow. I did not expect 14,000 upvotes for this comment, and I really love to learn so much about these kinds of customs, and that they are more widespread than I thought they would be. Especially in Europe, I did not expect it was common in Ireland, Finland, and Austria. Thanks for all the upvotes and interesting tidbits of culture that you've shared with me. Also, for those wondering, I know my girlfriend by now and the other way around. So yes, sometimes the Tarof happens, and I'm prepared for that, and meanwhile, my girlfriend knows I'm not that familiar with Tarof, so there's never much confusion between us. We value good communication. Have a great day, you guys. Story 4. My partner is from California, and I'm from Singapore. I think the biggest difference is popular culture. Everything from your childhood TV shows, the iconic music of your teens, and even your education system is going to be different. You cannot expect your partner to know what Mr. Rogers is or to have watched certain cartoons. All assumptions have to be thrown out the window. I think it's a good thing to be honest as you start from zero. It makes you completely aware of how vast the world around you is. And I keep learning new things every day. Just yesterday, I learned that in California, there's a mascot called Smokey Bear that taught kids about forest fires. In turn, I told her about Singa the courtesy lion, which is a mascot to teach people courtesy and good manners. We had an entire discussion about mascots and teaching populations, and it was so fascinating. This happens so much that sometimes we can't stop talking to each other. Story 5. I am white. My estranged family still implies that my Filipino husband is a scammer and is only with me for the money and Canadian citizenship. We have been together for almost 15 years, married for 12. You think that if he was only with me for the Canadian citizenship, he would have left me 10 years ago after he became a Canadian citizen. I do not even make a lot of money. He does not even make a lot of money, but we are comfortable and extremely happy. There is a reason why I do not speak to my family anymore. Story 6. Most of my in-laws are really great, and then there's my brother-in-law and his wife. I am from Spain, but he keeps thinking I'm from Mexico and likes to use phrases like wetback and such, while his wife is concerned that I should always have my papers in order in case we are ever stopped. I am a citizen here. Stupid Muppets. Story 7. Mentioned this on another post. Had 2 biracial children in the 70s. Had a woman exclaim, "Good Lord, are those children mixed?" To which I answered, "No ma'am. One's a boy and one's a girl." Story 8. Bit of a different perspective. My mom married my stepdad, who was a black man, when I was 6. I am fully white. He was there throughout all of my childhood. A great man. Eventually, they got divorced when I was 19. We were in Virginia at the time. As a white kid, I never really experienced racism in any form. I still remember that in 1997, the judge officiating the wedding at the courthouse looked at my stepdad and mom while I was holding the rings and said, "You're lucky." In some states, it's still illegal to marry a black person. Thinking back on it as an adult makes me furious. No one said anything because he was a judge. Both sets of grandparents were very supportive, but the extended family, oh boy. Subtle and overt racism from both sides. I had a good friend in middle school who was forced by his father to stop being my friend when he learned I had a black stepdad. Another horror story was when my stepdad had to go in for surgery from an injury he got at work. The doctor and nurse took him off pain medication and left him in his own filth. He heard while laying there, "The man doesn't need the morphine," and he started crying. We found out. I won't comment on how that situation was handled, but it was. These 3 events were all within about 4 years, from 1996 to 2000. When we moved away from Virginia and back to Massachusetts, the racism went from a 9 to a 2. No more Klan rallies down at City Hall, just the random racists that are anywhere. Not exactly the original poster's question, but as a kid brought into an interracial couple in the South, I thought I could share my perspective. Story 9. Culturally, Asian men do not talk about their problems or stress. It's a sign of masculinity to just quietly bear it all, so when things get rough, whether inside or outside of the relationship, my husband just becomes really quiet. At first, I thought maybe he's just really focused or motivated at the time. He doesn't express anger at all, but at the same time, he doesn't express anything at all. That's when I know something is up with him. Coming from a half-Latino household, we are very loud and expressive, especially when we are stressed out, worried, or angry. The Asian and Latino cultures are so opposite in so many ways, but yet so alike. It's quite a journey being married to an Asian man. I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest. I think bringing cultures together through love is one of life's greatest things to witness and be a part of. Story 10. White male here that dated a black woman for a while in my late teens. Overall, it was good for us. Her immediate family liked me. It wasn't until I went to the family reunion that it changed. We were both made aware it was wrong for us to date, even though a couple of guys had white girlfriends and wives. They also influenced her little brother. He and I would play games and all, but after that, he wouldn't speak a word to me. Her parents caught a ton of criticism as well for allowing me to date her. Her parents apologized. It wasn't their fault, but they were deeply hurt and embarrassed. We didn't break up because of that, but it did affect our relationship afterward. Story 11. I learned that Korean and Irish families are extremely compatible at a party with alcohol. After visiting, I now believe Korea is the Ireland of Asia. Great first world countries with a long history of being colonized, they bury their feelings with alcohol and party hard. They also both really value family and often joke with them. Both love cabbage. Story 12. The biggest difference I had to get used to was not talking to my mom anymore. She was not happy I married a white person and cut ties with me. There was also some subtle racism from members of my family. Even though it was small comments, I think it's for the best that I don't live near any of them. Story 13. I am Mexican and my husband is white, so I got used to them celebrating Christmas on Christmas Day and not Christmas Eve. Nothing crazy, but I was so used to Christmas Eve being the big day. Story 14. White male, black wife. Spices and moisturizer. Our spice cabinet is overflowing, and we have a bottle of moisturizer in almost every room of the house. Now I also smell like cocoa butter. Story 15. My ex was Mexican with darker skin, and I'm white. The weirdest thing was how we knew it was normal to be together where we lived, but if we traveled anywhere south, north, or rural, we'd get weird looks and judged. My friend said her grandma from Iowa saw a picture of us and told her not to be friends with me. Yikes. Story 16. The rice. So much rice. Every meal. My boyfriend is Asian, and I am as white can be, and other than the rice, we are very similar. But oh my goodness, the rice. I now cook rice measuring with my knuckle. Before him, I cooked rice maybe once a year. Now it's 2 to 4 times a week. Story 17. I am Mexican and my ex is Russian. I thought his mom hated me because when she said goodbye, she meant goodbye and would actually hang up. After some quick communication later, I got at least 3 goodbyes before we got off the phone. Story 18. This one lady at a gas station was like, "How in the world did you get a blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby?" I was like, he looks like his dad. I'm native. Stuff like that. Story 19. Either one by oneself. Practically invisible. Both of us together. Suddenly conspicuous. The glances on the street last a couple of seconds longer, and you notice lingering stares. You get told things along the lines of, "It's so nice to see the world progress. You're my favorite couple. It's such a nice day to go out with your significant other." Way more than if you went out with someone of the same race, or like your opposite-gendered cousin or close friend or whatever. Stuff that you're not sure if it is some weird microaggression and attempt at virtue signaling, or they're just genuinely glad race relations have improved since the 20th century. I kind of miss it. The biggest shock was just how pronounced of a dark bathtub ring she would leave when using my bath just once, using the same bath bomb I would use. It's really a marked difference in lotions and products. Story 20. Not really getting used to it, but coming to terms with it. I'm not in an interracial relationship anymore, but I'm white and my first 2 girlfriends were black. Learning that my parents were actively trying to get us to break up because of her skin color was something I didn't think I'd ever have to deal with, and I had to take a hard look at how much I was willing to see my family after that. Story 21. I'm South Asian, and he's East Asian. There have been a few differences around food since we started living together. He's used to eating meat with every meal, and I grew up vegetarian. So I compromise by making vegetarian meals for a few days every once in a while when I've had enough meat. Also, people somehow get really curious when it's 2 different people of color getting together. A waitress once literally asked him in Mandarin how he got a girlfriend like me. Story 22. I am white and married a Latino man. When his family says the party starts at 5, it actually means they do not even start cooking until around 7 or 8. If you show up at 5, you will just be sitting around. Story 23. Black woman with a white husband in the United Kingdom. I think the biggest difference was how family are treated. In my culture, I cannot fathom leaving an elderly family member to live alone and fend for themselves, but that seems pretty normal for my husband's family. We talk about it a lot, and he agrees it may seem weird but is expected. Also, regarding money, I am of the mindset that if you give someone money, you really don't ask for it back unless it was pre-agreed. As in, if I can afford to buy you something, I don't expect something in return. It seems in English culture everyone must pay each other back to the penny and not allow anyone to pay for anything. That's a real culture shock to me. Story 24. In my failed marriage, there was overt racism. I am Asian and my ex-husband is Eastern European. When we first started dating, his mother declared, "There are 3 races in this world. White, black, and yellow, and they should not mix." What would the neighbors say? His grandfather expressed surprise when he met me because I am not black. He thought Japan was in Africa. Japanese families are generally pretty respectful about not being too intrusive. His family was all into everyone's business. They would ask questions like, "You have gained weight. What are you eating?" And, "What does your psychiatrist say about how long you should be on antidepressants?" This is how they bond. His family felt I was secretive and hated them because I refused to answer these questions. This created a situation where my ex had to choose between his family and me. Guess what his choice was? Story 25. My wife's family was always slightly racist, always gave her advice to pursue all her options regularly. The kicker was when I tried to marry her after 6 years together. We had a full-blown intervention at what was expected to be the lunch of us telling them. Parents, sister, the whole shebang. They blindsided both me and my wife and insulted me to my face and said they wouldn't support the wedding. Told her we were being ridiculous as I sat there. My wife sat there silently while they grilled me. I've never felt so hurt and vulnerable in my life. I could barely open my mouth to defend myself. I felt so small. We're still together and I love her. but I feel I lost a part of my self-respect and feeling of safety that day. She lasted a whole 1 month, no contact with them, but they seem to have learned a bit from the shock. Emphasis on a bit, they still haven't apologized to me. Anyways, thanks for the read, stranger. Since people keep asking and I've posted this elsewhere. Her family are white, living somewhere in North America. My parents are brown immigrants here from Asia. Her parents are atheists, she is an atheist. My parents are Muslim, I'm an atheist. I was born here in the same city as her where we've known each other since age 13, going on 2 decades now. Story 26. My husband is black. I'm white. He was shocked at how my long hair found its way everywhere. All over the shower? Check. Randomly around the house? Check. In the crack of his backside? Check. He was less than impressed with that last one. With me, I couldn't run my fingers through his hair in any old direction without messing up his waves. I didn't know it had to be a certain way, and he didn't tell me. He said he liked me rubbing his head too much to tell me I was messing them up. It wasn't until he was rocking a slight afro, and I asked where those pretty lines in his hair went, and he glared at me and said, "You." He wasn't mad at me. He genuinely thought I knew and had just wanted to rub his head that badly. I was so clueless, I didn't even know they were called waves. Story 1. I am a dance teacher, and I taught twins a few years ago. One week, their mom was on vacation, so their grandma brought the girls. One was crying. Grandma told her, "Sabrina, go into class. You'll be fine." We went into the classroom, and the one was still crying. So I did my best to try to calm her down and continue teaching, but she was really upset. Finally, I stopped, looked closely at her and said, "Hold up, you're not Sabrina. You're Samantha." She immediately stopped crying, smiled at me, and was all happy. It turns out Grandma had been calling her Sabrina all weekend, and the actual Sabrina wouldn't correct her because she thought it was funny. I thought it was kind of funny that I could tell them apart, but Grandma couldn't. Story 2. I'm a father to twins, and this was one of my bigger concerns before they were born. Some tips that I read about to tell the difference upon their arrival were to look at their belly buttons, as they would be shaped differently, as well as look for any unique birthmarks. The belly button trick didn't work for me, but one of my sons was born with a birthmark on his inner left leg, so that's how I was able to keep track of which one is which. Story 3. I know a set of twins whose parents switched their names permanently on purpose. After giving the twins their names at the hospital, their mom and dad brought them home and decided their individual personalities actually suited the opposite name. So their parents just switched their names, didn't have to do any paperwork. It's amazing. Now that the twins are fully grown in their late 20s, their personalities are still so opposite, artist versus banker, and their names suit them both absolutely perfectly. Also, it's a great story now that they tell everyone, which is very cute. Story 4. Parent of twins here. When they were first born in the hospital, literally a few hours old, they were in little cots with their name tags above their heads. Someone opened a door too fast, and the breeze knocked both tags to the ground. I picked the tags up and couldn't remember which was which, so I just guessed. No one else needs to know, especially not their mother. Story 5. My parents kept our baby bracelets on for weeks after we came home. I was baby A. My sister was baby B. Although last year, I got into a friendly argument with my mom when she thought I was born second. I had to get my birth certificate to remind her I'm the older sister by 58 seconds. I got pulled out of the C-section first. Story 6. My dad is a twin. When he was little and his aunt came over, she would have them stand next to each other and look at the back of their heads. She told them their names were on the back of their heads. She was actually checking which way their cowlick spiraled because it was in opposite directions for them, and she knew whose was whose. Story 7. Have twins, now 4 years old. When they were newborns, before we were able to set up a system to feed both at the same time during overnight feedings, we would hold them one at a time with a bottle in hand. Feedings would take 45 minutes to an hour sometimes. Anyway, in my sleep-deprived stupor, I fed one child, put him down, grabbed the other bottle, and forgot which child I had fed. Pretty sure one child got fed twice a couple of times while the other did not eat. Story 8. The hospital gave us labeled wristbands, so we just kept them on for the first few days. We also didn't share clothing or anything like that between them, so there was pretty much always a distinct way to tell which was which. Story 9. So my wife had picked out names a few weeks before birth. In utero, they were referred to as Twin A and Twin B. The day before delivery, she informed the doctor where each baby one was presenting. After a failed standard delivery, we went to the operating room where there were literally at least 14 people. A neonatal intensive care unit group for each, 2 anesthesiologists, a nursing student, a doctor, a nurse, and so on. The doctor informed everyone in the room which baby would be our first. Also, they used numbers at the hospital. After that, they were never in the same bassinet at the hospital, and there was a size difference at the beginning. While still at the hospital, we used nail polish on one toe because the level of absolute mental exhaustion is unbelievable. They told us before we went into the hospital that a nurse would never take both babies in the same bassinet and would always have her credentials. A nurse came in just after a feeding in the middle of the night and asked if she could take the babies. We agreed. She placed one with the other and rolled them out the door. We were dumbfounded, thinking, did she just steal our kids? We had a baby security system installed. In what seemed like 5 minutes, the lights came back on, and the nurse returned with our girls, freshly bathed. She said the nursery was empty, and all the nurses wanted to play with the babies. When they found out there were twins earlier in the day, they decided to see if they could borrow them. When she showed up the next night, we surrendered the babies eagerly. I still get their names wrong 25% of the time, and they are nearly 7. Story 10. I used to babysit these twins. Their mom always dressed them in the same exact outfit except for the color of their socks. Well, when they were 1 year old, they loved taking their shoes and socks off. I mixed them up plenty of times. Story 11. Father of identical twin boys here. The day after their birth, the boys were sleeping in a hospital cot designed for twins. The cot itself lay on a slight incline to ensure that the babies' heads were kept slightly elevated. This unfortunately caused both the boys' hospital tags to slide off their skinny little legs during the night and land at the bottom of the cot. If I hadn't taken a photo of the boys the night before and written their names on the picture using my phone stylus, then we would have never known exactly who was who. Bullet dodged. Story 12. Ours were mono D, meaning they shared a placenta. As a result, one was born 9 ounces heavier, which is a pretty large difference when you consider they were both under 5 pounds. So in those first few months of exhaustion and delirium, if we were ever concerned we had gotten them confused, we just threw them on the baby scale. We only resorted to that once or twice. That size difference still exists to this day, over 3 years later, but they also look and act very differently. Story 13. I could always tell them apart. My wife had to hold them separately a couple of times to figure it out. One of them came out with really spiky hair, so it was pretty obvious which was which. I can tell which of them I'm talking to on the phone. When my sister asked me how I knew, her son, he was about 6 at the time, said, "Well, they are different people, Mom. I don't know why, but that always cracks me up." Story 14. We hired identical twins to do the same job in different shifts. Young college kids. It was tough at first, but luckily one had an earring. Their mom, who we are friends with, says their faces are completely mirrored, but who has time to notice something like that? Eventually, it was easy to see that their personalities are very different too, which helps. But man, when they were babies, they probably were switched. Story 15. A friend and I were telling each other tall stories, and he said he was one of identical twins. The family was caught in a Balkan snowstorm. He is Greek. When he was a baby, and one of them died. He has no idea if he is himself or his brother. E1. Story 16. I honestly just took my wife's word for it for the first 6 months or so. But she named them and knew their sex and which one was where before they were born. Story 17. Not a parent, but an 11-year older brother of identical twins. About 2 months after they were born, we only knew the difference by weighing them. We knew who was a bit heavier from the start. At one point, my parents and I were in a discussion about who was actually the heaviest one, so we just picked a name for the one who was the heaviest. There is a 50% chance they had their names switched. Not that it matters, but still, it's a strange thought. Story 18. I read something once where a father asked for advice about getting one baby tattooed to tell them apart, but they were still tiny infants. One had a very serious heart condition and one didn't. If the one with the condition missed his medication, it could kill him. If the one without the condition was given the medication, it could kill him. He was asking for advice because they had spent significant time in the emergency room recently when the medication was accidentally given to the wrong baby. They had tried everything, bracelets, painting toes, and lots of other methods according to him, but they were terrified of mixing them up again, especially since the accidental medication almost killed the baby. I just remember everyone calling him a monster and me being supportive of it. He even wanted it brown so they could just make it look like a freckle to keep both babies healthy and alive. Story 19. A lady that I know has triplet grandsons. Their mother did mix them up and took them back to the hospital to have them identified by their footprints that were taken shortly after birth. After that, their toenails were painted to make sure which was which. Story 20. I am a parent to monoamniotic monochorionic twins, probably the most identical type of twins in the world. I can tell them apart in person because their personalities and expressions from birth are just different. Their faces also have slight variations that the human eye can catch. On a typical day, I might refer to the wrong one once or twice because I'm not looking at them directly in the face. Now, if I look at their pictures from a year ago, I have no idea who's who. In fact, when they were born, I paid a photographer to do studio pictures, and I forgot to mark who's who and forever will never know. Face unlock can't tell them apart either. We tend to dress them the same with different color socks or accessories to tell them apart for pictures. But we never mix them up for too long because they have different birthmarks. Story 21. I'm not too sure when freckles and whatnot show up, or birthmarks for that matter, but I dated someone who had sisters. They were identical. Many people couldn't tell them apart, but they had distinct freckles here and there that separated them. I never mixed them up because of that. Too long. Didn't read. I'm not sure if freckles are there when the babies are ejected by the mother. Story 22. I was friends with a set of twins. They called them mirror twins. They looked exactly the same. The only way anybody knew which one was which was that one was left-handed and the other was right-handed. Story 23. There is a great episode about this exact situation on This American Life podcast. I can't remember the name of the episode, but maybe some other Reddit user can share. Story 24. This is the same topic but different. I went to high school and college with twins. I was really good friends with one of the twins in high school, and the other twin went to college with me. I assumed it was the twin I was cool with, and it became super awkward quickly. Story 25. I'm a little late to the party, but my younger brother is legally blind. He tells people apart based on voices and footsteps mostly. He's used to mixing people apart, and he remembers information based on names instead of faces. Long story short, I came home from college for his birthday party. He was probably 6 or 7. The friends he invited were our next-door neighbor and 3 sets of identical twins. They just loved him. Story 26. As a parent, you can tell. I had someone ask how we told our twins apart. I would tell them they are fraternal and not identical. They would ask how we knew that. Well, one has a penis and one has a vagina. Well, they could still be identical though. I have had this conversation more than once. Story 27. I have 2 twin cousins that, to this day, I struggle to tell apart, and we grew up together. As babies, they color-coded each of them. Victoria in purple and Amanda in pink. One day, my uncle mixed them up in the bathtub, and he still isn't sure they didn't get permanently switched that day. Shortly after, they pierced their ears, giving one pink earrings and the other purple, and I still have a habit of looking at their ears before calling them by name. Unfortunately, at 24, they no longer color code themselves. Story 28. Dad to boy/girl twins here. I just wanted to stop in to say the number of people who ask me if they are identical is ridiculous. Some people even insist they are identical. I've taken to telling people he has a bigger penis. Story 29. I had identical twins in my primary 1 to primary 3 classes. It didn't take long to be able to tell them apart. Years later, I met one but didn't know which. Laughing out loud. Story 30. My grandma said my dad always pulled at his ear, so she knew it was him. They got glasses around first grade, and she always gave my dad full plastic frames and his brother half-wire frames. Story 31. I played with twins from age 6 to maybe 16. I never could tell them apart and would probably still have problems today if they are not talking. The funniest thing is that even the father told me a couple of years ago that he couldn't really tell them apart before puberty. He said they were basically the exact same human being. Today, they have very different personalities. Story 32. One time I was in 5th grade and I asked a first grader who had a twin brother for a tip on telling them apart. He answered me, "That's easy. I'm Justin. So my brother is Lucas." Story 33. I did accidentally switch my twins once. My dad and I were each taking care of one all day. We were working in shifts because they did not sleep much. My mom woke up and informed us that we had them mixed up. I didn't believe her until I lifted the shirt of the baby I was holding and didn't see the red mark on his side he was born with. We had mixed them up. My mom just left from a visit recently. My boys are 7 now. She brought it up and asked if he still had the red mark. I hadn't looked for it in a long time, so we lifted his shirt and it is still there. It is very faded, but I now know we never got them permanently confused. It is hard to tell them apart at times, but their voices are very different. If I can't figure out which one is which, I just have them speak. Story 34. Our boys are 18 months now, and Leo was born with a rare condition called hyperinsulinemia, which is effectively the opposite of diabetes. A part of his pancreas was overproducing insulin, starving his body and, more worryingly, his brain of the sugar it needs. To counter this, he was put on diazoxide, which accelerates hair growth as a side effect. By the time the boys were a couple of months old, we had Finley, who was still practically bald, and Leo, who looked like a little monkey. It was a really tough time. When he was in the hospital, we nearly lost him. Then, when we got him home, we had to give him medication 5 times a day, including 1 dose at midnight and 1 at 4 a.m. The silver lining was that we could easily tell them apart thanks to the hair. Leo grew out of the condition by 6 months, and over time Finley caught up in the hair department, so we've lost that as a means of telling the difference. But it doesn't matter at this point, as they have their own personalities, facial expressions, and mannerisms, which make them instantly identifiable to us. People who don't see them all the time struggle to tell just because they aren't familiar with these things. Oh, and if they both stood perfectly still, we'd still manage, as Finley has a small epidermal cyst beside his left eye. So, if we were totally stuck, there's always that. I was thinking about sharing a picture of them when Leo had all the hair, but I'm not sure how I feel about putting them up online for anyone to see. Story 1. This is the photo Kurt Diemberger took after his companion, the illustrious alpinist Hermann Buell, fell into the abyss on the Himalayan mountain Kagalisa. Buell was walking behind Diemberger and momentarily left the trail, after which he fell through an overhanging cornice. He remains in the ice. Story 2. The leading image on Franklin Delano Floyd's Wikipedia page shows a father and his daughter posing for a family photo. In actuality, the little girl is Floyd's stepdaughter, Suzanne Marie Savakis, whom he kidnapped around 1974 when Suzanne was under 10 years old. He would go on to raise her as his daughter, putting her through high school under several pseudonyms, then have a son with her in 1988 and marry her in 1989 under the name Tanya Hughes. By 1990, Tanya, also known as Suzanne, had decided to leave Floyd and take her son Michael with her. In April of that year, she was found beaten and bruised on the side of a highway and subsequently died in the hospital. Michael went into foster care and was adopted by a loving family, only to be kidnapped by Floyd in 1994 and to never be seen again. Floyd was arrested in late 1994. The news about his late second wife being his kidnapped stepdaughter didn't come out until 2014. Someone rightly pointed out that Michael is not Floyd's biological son. This was only discovered when DNA testing was performed as part of Michael's adoption in 1994, when he was 4 to 5 years old. Presumably, up until that point, Floyd had reason to believe he was the biological father. Photos of his were found that depicted sexual exploitation of Suzanne, also known as Tanya, from the age of 4. Story 3. This picture of First Lady Rosalind Carter shaking hands with serial killer John Wayne Gacy, who was active in politics at the time. Story 4. This isn't as gruesome as some of the others, but I always thought this guy looked more like a male model than an assassin. Lewis Powell was a co-conspirator of John Wilkes Booth, and he attempted to assassinate William Henry Seward, the United States Secretary of State. This is a colorized digital restoration of one of his photos. I guess the photo is only seemingly normal if you don't notice the cuffs. Story 5. This man kidnapped, raped, and abused the son of Gary Plosh. As he was walking through the airport, Gary was at a payphone, and when he passed by, Gary turned and shot him in the head. I don't believe he served any jail time. Story 6. This old photo of mountaineers from 1924 shows the men George Mallory, the greatest mountaineer of the early 20th century, and his climbing partner Sandy Irvine at their advance camp on Everest. 2 days later, they would attempt the summit and disappear without a trace. This picture especially puts the last one in context for me. Those are Mallory's remains, found in 1999. The same man in both pictures, 75 years apart. Irvine's body is still missing. Evidence is inconclusive whether they made the summit before their deaths. Story 7. The instrument in that picture is the Hartley violin. It was owned by Wallace Hartley, the bandmaster and lead violinist on the Titanic. It was the one he carried with him on the night the ship sank. Survivors reported seeing Hartley and his band on the deck of the ship during the sinking, playing to calm passengers as they boarded the insufficient lifeboats. This is the exact instrument he played. Hartley and every member of the band died in the sinking. We have his violin because at some unknown point before his death, Hartley tucked the violin back into its monogrammed case for safekeeping. That's how it was found, floating in the debris field, by one of the ships sent to recover bodies from the wreck. They were able to identify it as Hartley's because of an engraved brass plate, and it was returned to his fiancée, who kept it until her death. Her family authenticated it and sold it for $1.6 million to an organization that collects Titanic artifacts. Story 8. There's a photo of an American volcanologist sitting down while studying volcanic activity at Mount St. Helens. 13 hours after the photograph was taken, on May 18, 1980, the volcano erupted and killed 57 people, including the volcanologist. Story 9. Eyes of Hate, a candid photograph of Goebbels after he finds out his photographer was Jewish, 1933. If looks could kill, I found him sitting alone at a folding table on the lawn of the hotel. I photographed him from a distance without him being aware of it. As documentary reportage, the picture may have some value. It suggests his aloofness. Later, I found him at the same table surrounded by aides and bodyguards. Goebbels seemed so small while his bodyguards were huge. I walked up close and photographed Goebbels. It was horrible. He looked up at me with an expression full of hate. The result, however, was a much stronger photograph. There is no substitute for close personal contact and involvement with the subject, no matter how unpleasant it may be. He looked at me with hateful eyes and waited for me to wither. But I didn't wither. If I have a camera in my hand, I don't know fear. Story 10. This photo of nightclub kiss was posted on Facebook by one of the DJs. Later that night, 245 people would die and more than 680 would be injured when the band Gurzada Fandanguera lit a flare that ignited the flammable acoustic foam in the ceiling. There weren't enough emergency exits. It was overcrowded by hundreds, and the security guards trapped the victims inside in an attempt to organize the crowd. The responsible are still unpunished. Story 11. Politician Bud Dwyer opening an envelope. He was holding a televised press conference about a scandal he was being accused of when the envelope was delivered to him during the press conference. He continued by opening the envelope and revealing a handgun that he promptly put in his mouth, killing himself live on national television. This is one of the primary reasons many live news reports are preempted by a few minutes, just in case. Story 12. This photo shows John Edwards Robinson, wearing a yellow sweater, holding baby Tiffany. He murdered her mother the day before. He gave baby Tiffany to his brother, claiming she was adopted. His brother and Tiffany did not discover the truth for 15 years. Story 13. A man swam to his girlfriend in their underwater hotel room while on vacation in Tanzania and proposed to her with a note and a ring. He died before he could resurface from the water. Story 14. This photo of Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka at their wedding coincides with the discovery of one of their victims. Story 15. A kid went missing while hiking at a spot on the Big Island of Hawaii. He texted some pictures of the scenery while he was hiking. After he didn't show up at home, his family noticed somebody lurking in the bushes in the photos he sent. If I recall correctly, my family in Hawaii said the spot is illegal to hike, so it wouldn't have been a heavily populated trail. Story 16. This photo was taken at a nightclub before it caught on fire by fireworks, leaving 100 people dead. Story 17. Sad story of a missing 4-year-old later found dead from asphyxiation, wedged at the foot of her bed between the mattress and frame. You can barely make out the little bulge of her body in that picture, but you can. The picture of the bed ran on the news, and the mom did interviews while sitting on it. There are more graphic pictures of what it looked like with the blankets removed and the body uncovered, but I'm not going to link that. Her body wasn't found after professionals and search dogs searched the room. It was found once the smell got bad enough. Also, I'm pretty sure I read someone slept in the bed during that time, but not sure on that. Story 18. This physicist, Harold Agnew, is holding the nuclear core of the Fat Man atomic bomb, which was dropped on Nagasaki. There is one more picture of Agnew on that webpage. Story 19. This image may seem quite insignificant, but this was Marco Simoncelli's number 58, white and red motorcycle in the middle of the pack, last race. It's on YouTube and there are plenty of articles about it, but there was a crash and his helmet came off. His good friend Valentino Rossi, also in that shot, number 46, was unable to avoid him and went over his head. 10 years ago this year, still one of the most horrific live sporting events I have witnessed. Story 20. Two brothers smiling. Kevin and Bart Whitaker. Hours later, after arriving home from dinner, Bart killed Kevin and his mother after conspiring with a friend. He tried to kill his father as well, but he survived. It's a horrible story. I don't know what became of Bart though. All I know is that his father somehow found the courage to forgive him. Story 21. I read all of these but didn't see the relatively recent murder case of the two girls from Delphi, Libby and Abby. It's an ongoing investigation, but local law enforcement released a film of their killer taken from one of the girls' phones, and also a photo of Abby walking over the railway bridge shortly before they disappeared. Story 22. The Lawson family portrait always makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Wikipedia tells their awful tale, which has been memorialized in murder ballads. Dressed in their finest, a picture made for the holidays, and no one knowing that the father would kill most of the family days later. Brutal stuff. Story 23. Apparently this is a photo of a 4-year-old girl's footprints before she drowned in a pond. Story 24. Here is the corrected text suitable for Azure Text-to-Speak AI. Here is Juana Barraza, former professional wrestler and serial killer. She strangled elderly women by pretending to work for the government. It is a sad story. She was sold to a man as a sex slave for 3 beers when she was 12 years old until her stepfather found her at 17. She ended up with 4 failed marriages and 4 children and worked doing odd jobs as a launderer or cleaner. Then she started killing and robbing elderly women if they upset her because they reminded her of her abusive mother. It is a sad and tragic story. Story 25. Jewish children holding hands as they unknowingly walk to their deaths in the gas chambers at Auschwitz. Story 26. This photo of some graffiti in 2019 on the inside of an old bus is from a newly married couple who hiked deep into the Alaskan wilderness and were staying at the Magic Bus, made famous by the book and movie from 2007, Into the Wild, about Chris McCandless, who hiked into the Alaska wilderness in the early 90s with little food and equipment and spent the summer living in an old abandoned school bus he found, but later got stuck there because of a flooded river and died of starvation. The married couple stayed overnight at the bus, which, because of its fame, attracts hikers, but the next day, when they attempted to leave, the river was swollen and the wife got swept away and drowned. despite the frantic actions of the husband. Since then, the government brought in a helicopter and airlifted out the old bus so more people wouldn't visit it. Story 27. I've posted this before. Politician at an election rally. Last photo of Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. Taken moments before a suicide bomber bent down, touched his feet, and detonated her bomb. Edit. Last 2 frames of the film. Story 28. The kid on the right in this photo had already paid 2 of his buddies to murder his family that night. They would kill the mother and brother, but the father who took the photo survived. Story 29. Brandon Price. The picture in the article is the only known picture of him. He was living with his grandparents and being abused. He was dead when his grandmother brought him to the hospital. She has been charged and, the last I heard, was still awaiting trial for his death. The community took up donations to pay for his burial and headstone. He looks completely demoralized in the picture, and I've always felt so bad for him. Story 30. This was the last picture taken of Dale Earnhardt. It is weird because the race was televised and 10 to 15 million people were watching at the time, but this is the last one that shows him as a person and not just a car. This is a replay of the crash along with an onboard roof view, and the half-speed does not do justice to how hard and fast it was hitting the wall head-on at 190 miles per hour. He was the face and living legend of what was the second most popular sport at the time, and 20 years later, fans who were watching at the time still have not gotten over watching their hero die live on television. Edit. I appreciate that this is bringing up a lot of memories. I really got introduced to death by being a National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing fan, but fortunately, since this accident, nobody has passed away since, including from this which happened in the same race 19 years later. The replays at the end are still hard to watch and legitimately gave me the same anxiety Dale gave me until they announced he was stable like 2 hours later. Story 31. What you are seeing is a normal photo of a scuba diver, but in the background you can see another diver behind them heading swiftly for the ocean floor, and on the right-hand side of the image, there is a flat and strangely stiff figure. Tina Watson, about 100 feet underwater, unconscious or likely already dead. Tina was visiting Australia on her honeymoon with her new husband Gabe Watson, also a diver, who convinced her to get certified despite Tina being very nervous and uncomfortable underwater. During an open ocean dive that was far too advanced for her limited experience, Tina experienced an equipment malfunction and drowned. Her husband Gabe is, at best, an arrogant, incompetent, lying individual who exaggerated his abilities as a certified rescue diver and was unable to save his wife when she began exhibiting signs of distress. At worst, he is a cold-blooded murderer who deliberately shut off her air supply until she passed out and then allowed her to drown. He gave 16 differing accounts of the incident, which occurred shortly after he requested that Tina make him her sole life insurance beneficiary. On the advice of her father, Tina did not change her policy, but she told Gabe that she had. After being charged with Tina's murder, Gabe pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. His sentence was suspended after only 18 months. He is now back in Alabama. Whatever you believe happened beneath the surface, the photograph is chilling. Story 32. This is a photo of Tyler Hadley holding a cup at a party at his house. Just before this party, he had murdered his mother and father and hid their bodies in the master bedroom. Story 33. This picture was taken of a group of people whose plane crashed in the Andes. They were eventually saved but had to resort to cannibalism to survive. They are all smiling in the photo, but it becomes eerie when you realize the human spine to the right of them in the picture. As many have pointed out, there is a movie based on this event called Alive. Story 34. If you are British and of a certain age, you will probably be as haunted by this grainy image as I am. I still distinctly remember the first time I saw it. At the time, James Bulger was only missing, and it was regarded as a cause for optimism that he was last seen with other children. The truth was far worse than anyone imagined and still inspires a visceral reaction unlike any other crime in my lifetime. Story 1. Adults don't have it all figured out. They are just used to the fact that they are not and are usually quite good at hiding it. Dealing with your emotions will become easier as you grow. Even if someone says that their high school years were the best time of their life, it doesn't mean that yours should necessarily be. There's a high chance your best years are far ahead of you. Story 2. Basic household management. Learn how to cook a couple of meals, know when to tidy and clean up a bit, etc. Speaking from someone who moved out at 18 and had no clue. Oh, and look after yourself physically and mentally. Story 3. All of us adults still feel like we are young too. Take care of your body and enjoy your youth in any manner you can. In the mirror, I see a bald middle-aged guy, but that's not the guy in my head. As always, relevant comic. Because my race really is irrelevant to this. Story 4. Don't compare yourself to others too much. No matter how perfect someone may seem, they are not. Nobody is. Everybody has flaws and makes mistakes. You are okay. Story 5. Right now, you have a massive span of life in front of you. Enjoy it. But remember, 10 or 20 years from now, you're going to be much happier if you both had fun and also thought ahead. Read, exercise, hug your friends, show your loved ones you love them, whatever that means to you. This thread might be filled with ways to be a responsible adult and a successful person. Try as hard as you can to be a happy one too. Thanks for the awards and thanks for being you. Sorry for the typo. And yes, maybe wait until the pandemic is over before hugging everyone. Just keep it in mind for when things are better. Story 6. Don't blow your student loan on drugs. Don't blow your load in someone you don't want kids with. Don't blow off family or friend gatherings. They won't be around forever. Don't blow your cool if you can help it. It rarely solves anything. Story 7. You will make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes will be huge. But that's okay. Whatever problem that mistake produced, it's only temporary. You can correct it. It may not be easy, and it may take time, but you can do it. Story 8. 3 things I wish I had known. Figure out what you want to do, not what you want to learn about. Think about the actual work you would be doing in a field. Science is exciting, but are you ready to stand around in a lab all day writing things down in the most thorough way possible? Money stuff. You don't get rich with the money you earn. You get rich with the money you don't spend. Be careful spending money on trends and be aware of things you want to actually keep, not just what you want to have right now. Also, Excel is your friend. Learn to budget as soon as possible. Use every opportunity you get. It may feel like there's always a next time, but there's no reason not to do it now. Whether it's that trip with your friends or the chance to have a private moment with your crush. Don't wait for a perfect moment or even a good one. Use the moment you have because you won't always get another one, and you most certainly don't want to have a "what if I did that" thought haunting you. There are always a million reasons not to do something. You only need one reason to do something. Story 9. I started off by making regular comments, but I believe this works better in a list structure. 1. Appreciate the moments and the time that you have right now. Cherish the moments with your friends and all the time you get to spend with them right now. Make time to be with your family at least once a week. Believe me, they are not asking for much. Do not worry about having the latest technology or luxuries in the moment. All of those go obsolete within a year. Rather focus on getting the things you need. There will be a time when you will be able to afford that. No need to worry about it now. If you are wrong about something, admit it, learn, and move on. That is what smart people do. Be humble, learn what you are and learn what you are not. Fight for the little ones. You never know when cards can be reversed and you will want someone to stand up for and with you. Always be kind of heart. Help, listen, and support others. Family, friends, even strangers. As long as it is safe for you to do so, of course. If you are dealing with a mental disorder and you feel like your world is crumbling down, seek help from family, friends, and professionals. There is nothing wrong with needing help. 10. Sometimes, and in some cases a lot of times, life is going to be unfair. That is just the way life works. Do not take it personally. Do not keep it in your heart. Do not carry it with you for the rest of your life or even for a good part of it. Take what you need to take from that and move on. I am in no way trying to get preachy or sound like a life expert. In all honesty, these are things that to this day I think about often and that I wish I knew at different and very specific points of my teenage years. Story 10. If somebody tries to tell you, these are the best years of your life, That's absolutely false. Your quality of life and how much fun you are allowed to have are not dictated by your age. And it's naive to assume all teenagers have it easy. Story 11. Personal hygiene is critical. You need to shower regularly, use antiperspirant, brush and floss, and do your laundry. Other people will notice your odor long before you do, and once you're known as the smelly person, it's nearly impossible to clear that reputation. Make it a rule that you don't leave your house unless you've showered within the last 24 hours, are wearing clean underwear, and have brushed your teeth and put on deodorant within an hour prior to leaving. Sounds silly, but there is sadly a large population that needs to improve their hygiene. Story 12. No one is going to stop you from eating cotton candy with chili, but when they see how good it is, they will pretend they were on your side the whole time. Edit to add. It is a metaphor I came up with while walking through my house eating a ball of cotton candy and waiting for the chili to cook. You can always try eating them together if you want. Thanks for all the upvotes and the awards. I did not expect it. Also, sorry it was confusing people. Story 13. The adults giving you advice to avoid certain mistakes were most likely told the exact same thing and chose to ignore it, which would have been expected as they too ignored the advice. Story 14. Mental health issues typically emerge between the ages of 18 and 25. Of course, they can show up earlier or later, but in those early adult years, it's really important to be cognizant of your mental state. Story 15. Respect your body. You have to live with it for the rest of your life. Spend some time outdoors, do some sports, and eat your vegetables. Grow your mind. Every small investment of your time into acquiring new knowledge or practicing skills will pay tremendous dividends over time. Understand your decisions. Story 16. Do not take out student loans without fully understanding the repayment terms and how much you will pay over the course of the loan, including interest. For that matter, college isn't for everybody, and even then, private schools are a ripoff. Go public. Story 17. Your life is extremely long and things can change very quickly and drastically. So don't beat yourself up about not knowing what you want to do or feeling like you haven't hit certain milestones. I was an anxious emotional wreck from my early teens until my late 20s, with very few friends and no romantic partners. I didn't lose my virginity until I was 28. I did jobs I didn't care about that paid no money for almost my entire 20s. I was suicidal for a while and was in and out of therapy and crisis centers. Now I'm 29 and in a loving relationship, working a job that I enjoy and that will carry me to retirement. All this development happened within about 2 years. I see a lot of people on the internet who are like 15, 19, or 22 who think that their life is over because they didn't get a date for prom, or they're still a virgin, or they're struggling in university, or they struggle with mental illness or whatever. I don't blame them because I was the same way. But trust me, there is plenty of time for you to turn your life around. Story 18. Money is the thing I've struggled with the most in my life, so here are some things I've learned. Asterisk, I like the idea of having a career that makes a lot of money, for example, medicine or software engineering, and keeping your passion projects as hobbies. Following your passions as a career will make you broke, plus you'll get burned out on the things you're passionate about. You don't have to go to college to volunteer your weekends at the animal shelter. Asterisk, stay away from debt. Pay cash for as much as you can. Finance your house and car if you want, but don't go into debt for school. There are so many lower-cost options than a 4-year university. You can do community college and transfer to a state school. Northern Illinois University in Illinois offers free tuition to students who hold a 3.0 grade point average or higher in high school. I wish they had that when I was a teenager, but it's a new thing. Asterisk, save some money. If you save $100 a month into a 401k or individual retirement account from the time you're 21 until the normal United States retirement age of 60, you'll have over $1 million. Imagine how much you would have if you could put back $200 or $500 a month. Asterisk, travel before you have a spouse and children. Asterisk, learn to live by yourself. This doesn't mean be lonely. I only mean to not be codependent. Story 19. Almost no one becomes rich and famous. Almost all of us end up doing something different than what we thought we would do, and it is okay. It will turn out great if you let it. It is okay to change your mind about your job or career. You should consider trade school and not just college. You should focus on being happy. If you are happy working 80-hour weeks, good for you. If you would rather be a little more balanced, then maybe do not rush off to graduate law or medical school. Okay, yes, this is advice I wish I had received as a teen. Story 20. You are somewhere between 3 to 4 heartbreaks before you actually find love. Those breakups hurt and you felt like that person was the one, but that is mostly just infatuation and raging hormones. Each relationship will teach you lots about whoever you were seeing, but if you are paying enough attention, they will teach you even more about yourself. Know yourself. Be confident in who you are and what you need to feel valued and happy. Story 21. A lot of the social pressures of high school and even college vanish instantly the moment you leave. It is absolutely vital that you spend time being your genuine self and make friends based on actual common interests you have rather than attempting to conform to peer pressure. The cool kids mentality is complete nonsense, changes from year to year on a whim, and is obsolete by your senior year. Story 22. Life costs a lot more than you think it does. If you have a chance to really stand out in some way academically, take it. It's probably your best path towards a stable financial future. Physical work takes way more of a toll on your body than you think right now. Focus on school because a college degree is probably the safest way to avoid needing to work physically. Don't be swayed by the obsession with being antisocial. Having a support system is great, and reconnecting with someone you were an acquaintance with at one point can be a way to expand that. If someone is offering a healthy relationship, foster it. Don't burn bridges. People can be rude in high school and really have a reckoning in college. You're not obligated to them at all, but realize people absolutely do change, especially moving out of a small pond. Story 23. Take care of your health now. Don't spend all day inside drinking Mountain Dew and playing video games, or you're going to end up with brittle bones, a vitamin D deficiency, and insulin resistance. Story 24. You cannot start saving for retirement early enough. Compounding growth can make you rich. Do not go into credit card debt. Be kind to people even if they are not always kind to you. Life is easier that way. Make exercise a regular part of your weekly routine. Eat healthy foods. Your word is your bond. Be honest. Do what you say. Be trustworthy. Story 25. 1. Every adult you encounter isn't perfect, including your parents. 2. Everyone is just winging life. 3. Family isn't the people bound by blood. It's the people who love and cherish you no matter what. The ones who help you and motivate you through life. Learn this the hard way. 4. Learn to be happy being alone and independent. 5. Life can be unfair, but don't let it put you down. Keep trying. 6. Appreciate the little things in life. 7. Don't take your friendships and family for granted. Cherish and appreciate them, as some relationships are like seasons. The ones that do stick around, keep them close. Story 26. There are 1 million elderly people, each sitting on $1 million worth of property, desperately wishing they knew somebody worthy to will it to. The bar is pretty low. I have talked to more than a dozen people begging me to name somebody worthy to will their land to. One old friend would call me every 2 months asking this. He died while someone I suggested had been living up there for about a month before he could decide if this person was worthy. I have since tried to come up with a system for people to demonstrate their worth to elderly people with homesteads and connect them. The system is about 80% ready. About 20 people are helping me finish it. About 40 people have started doing some of the things to prove their worth. Story 27. Do not focus on getting into a relationship. You will fall into one just by seeing friends and such. Also, time heals all wounds, for real. It is not just a phrase. Story 28. Save your money. Even if it is just $1 per week, simply get in the habit of putting that dollar into an account you do not touch. It is not about the amount, it is about the habit. And do not let yourself confuse saving with buying at a discount. As in, I saved $5 when I bought it. No, you did not save anything. Story 29. Google everything. One amazing thing about being a teen in 2020 is the internet. Didn't have that when I was that age and thought I was the only one experiencing a lot of things. That said, stay off Facebook, Instagram, and similar sites as much as you can. I'm middle-aged and can't imagine dealing with all that insanity, let alone if I were a teen. Reddit is cool though, lots of discussions. Story 30. A university degree is not going to automatically get you a job. Consider a diploma that comes with a cooperative education program that gives you hands-on experience, or even better, consider a trade such as plumbing, welding, electrician, or beautician. Story 31. Don't send or ask for nudes. So many things could go wrong. The person you have a crush on or are dating could forward it to all their friends. You could have criminal charges pressed on you and have to register as a sex offender for producing child pornography. It is not worth the risk. Story 1. I was recently diagnosed with cancer, and that made me afraid. The funny thing is I never thought I would be, but now I am. I'm mostly afraid of not being able to experience things in my life that I would want to experience, like marrying my significant other, buying our first home, going on vacation, etc. I'm also afraid of what my death would do to my partner and parents. And, of course, I'm afraid of pain and dying alone in some hospital. So yeah, let's hope I will recover and not have to think about this for another 50-ish years. Yeah, I'm pretty young. Story 2. That's the way to word this question. Yes, I am. I'm not scared of being dead, but I'm very scared of becoming dead. I'm even more scared of nearly dying but surviving with a messed up brain or something. Story 3. I think I would just be disappointed. My life has gotten to a place I enjoy after struggling for a long time. It would be unfortunate to die after all the hard work. Story 4. My best friend had a near-death experience the other day. The day after, we relaxed, and he told me that the little accident made him realize he actually is scared of death because there's so much he still needs to do. Story 5. I hated my life before. I tried killing myself. I failed. So now I'm such a scaredy cat because I love my life and the people I surround myself with. I don't want that to end. I'm grateful for my survival. Story 6. No, my wife died from leukemia in my arms. I've seen death and I won't live in fear of it. I'm trying to fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run. Story 7. Natural instinct and probably the uncertainty of it all. I know when you are dead, you stop existing and you no longer think or feel or do anything, but at the same time, it just seems so unreal to me. I will never be able to experience anything truly from another perspective, so how can my point of view just cease to be one day? Logically, it will happen, but mentally, I cannot wrap my mind around the fact that I will die and there will be nothing, that I will experience nothing else and not even be aware of it. Story 8. I am because I am 31, and I am waiting for almost 10 years to finally start the life I want, but cannot due to financial reasons and depression. I just want to live a good life, and I am afraid that I wasted too much time and that it will be too late for me to finally be happy. Story 9. I am because if there is no place you go to after, then I just stop existing. I will not be in nothingness. I will not be in black. My thoughts will just stop existing. I will never do anything ever again. Story 10. I am okay with the idea of dying. It doesn't scare me, but I do worry about the impact it would have on my family. Edit. I'm glad to see others agree. I know many people who don't believe me when I say it, so I'm happy to read all your thoughts. Thank you for the awards too. Strangers. Story 11. Seem to be going against the majority here, but yes. What freaks me out is when I think about what comes next and the possibility, or likelihood, of it just being a black nothingness and your life is done. Although I won't feel anything or miss anything, similar to before I was born, the thought still really scares me when I think a lot about it. Story 12. I think one of the major things that scare me about dying is the concept of eternity. I mean, when you die, you're dead forever, and it scares me not to know how that feels. How does it feel not to be alive? Forever. I don't know, it's kind of an oxymoron situation because being dead doesn't feel like anything, since your capacity to feel is gone. That's also probably part of the fear factor. The uncertainty and the not knowing part of what being dead feels like really gets me. I don't like not knowing things. Story 13. Sometimes I will think that when I die, my brain will continue to function, and I will be floating in a void with my thoughts for an infinite amount of time. This is, of course, illogical, but I guess I sometimes think about this because my brain can't fathom a life without it. I then remind myself that that is really stupid, but this idea often pops back into my mind from time to time. Story 14. The only part of dying I'm scared of is being forgotten. I'm really scared of being just lost, my life not really amounting to any legacy. Actually, no, thinking about it as I write, I'm scared of the slow dying that my family seems to suffer with. Dementia runs through one side, Parkinson's the other, so maybe I'll forget why I'm shaking. I'd hate to see my family watch that. Story 15. I'm afraid of leaving my life behind. What if I die young and leave my daughter, my husband, and this life I created behind? My husband will probably remarry, and my daughter will be too young to remember me. I won't get to see her grow up, and I won't get the chance to have a second child. Since my mom was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago, I have horrible health anxiety. Story 16. I've been afraid of dying since I was a toddler. The idea of no longer existing fills me with a deep, aching hollowness in my chest. It's the loss of absolutely everything, and it's completely inevitable and permanent. It's such a fundamental fear for me that I find it very difficult to comprehend that some people are not and have never been afraid of it. If you stripped away all that I was as a person piece by piece, it would be one of the last things to go. Similarly, I find most people's attitudes towards the deaths of others bizarre as well. We tend to feel sorry for the family and ourselves, but the person that died just got wiped from existence. Their beautiful, complex, feeling brain has shut down, and we're sad because of how that impacts us. Also, death is rarely peaceful, so I live with the knowledge that my last precious moments of existence are probably going to be in agony and fear. That's a fun bonus. Story 17. I think the only reason we fear death is because we do not understand it nor what happens after. It's like how we are not scared of the dark, rather what's in it. Not knowing is probably one of our greatest fears. And I think that's why almost every religion has an afterlife, in an attempt to get rid of said uncertainty. Story 18. I am afraid because I know that all the memories I have made in my lifetime and everyone I have met will just disappear forever from my mind. Everything I know will disappear forever, not to mention the thought of being forgotten and leaving loved ones behind. Story 19. I am not frightened of dying. Any time will do, I don't mind. Why should I be frightened of dying? There's no reason for it, you've got to go sometime. Story 20. I am very afraid of dying to the point of random panic attacks. I think it's mostly the thought that at any point my consciousness could just stop existing. Life just seems so fragile. Story 21. I am terrified of dying. It sends me into really worrying panic attacks. I have spent many nights of many weeks trying to figure out why I have such a fear. I have come up with no answers, but every time I think about it, I become more scared. Story 22. I am afraid of dying too soon, especially if we only have one life. I'm only 16, so I haven't really done anything like traveling, meeting someone, etc., so I'm afraid to die now. Hopefully, I won't be until the age of 80 because I've already done everything I wanted to do. Story 23. I've died 3 times due to a traumatic brain injury. It's frightening. It hurts. My God, it hurts. I was bleeding in the brain in 2 places, the frontal and anterior lobes. My breathing shut down. Panic. Complete and utter panic. I was fighting the paramedics. They had to strap me down. They intubated me, which is another whole level of panic for a lifelong asthmatic. They were ventilating me, and then my heart went into fibrillation. And then the pain, oh my God, the pain. Everywhere. Every single nerve was screaming like I was on fire. And then they defibrillated me. I've been shocked a number of times as a clumsy electrical engineer, but this was like nothing I've ever felt. It was like sucking on a high voltage line. My whole body lit up, and my eyes saw sparks. And then they did it again. I tasted blood, mine, and copper and smelled fire. And then whap, like hitting a black wall, I was gone. Totally gone. From the records, they worked on me for a couple of minutes and got me going again. Automated external defibrillator only, fortunately, because a cracked sternum and ribs from cardiopulmonary resuscitation really suck. Then repeat in a hospital emergency room. then a helicopter to the level 1 trauma center, then repeat in the trauma center emergency room, then coma for 4 days, then surgery, and I woke up a day or so later wondering what the heck. I don't like pain. I've experienced it. I know dying all the way will hurt like hell. I fear the pain. What comes after? I have no idea. As far as I know, nothing. But there won't be that level of pain again. All I can say is, try not to get concussions or brain injuries when you're a kid. My simple fall on ice probably wouldn't have done me in if I hadn't been a wild one as a kid and gotten 9 concussions before I was in my 20s. Wear a freaking helmet. Story 24. I am not afraid of being dead. I am afraid of the uncertainty surrounding the process of dying. The potential suddenness or prolonged suffering, immense pain or nothingness, saying goodbye to loved ones or not even having the chance, being alone and nobody finding my body for weeks or having people witness my death. Story 25. I used to be extremely afraid of death. I stayed up at night because of the thought. But then I realized I did not exist for billions of years until 16 years ago. I did not feel loneliness. I did not feel pain. I did not feel fear. I was not conscious. I hope there is some form of reincarnation after death, but if there is not, it does not bother me. Story 26. I am afraid of death because what happens during death? Is it darkness without end? Is it what we imagined as heaven? Is there even an afterlife? Existence crisis stuff. Story 27. I look forward to wandering this world in the hereafter, exploring in death as a spirit that which I could not explore in life. I will visit my family's old landmarks, go to see friends, cause some mischief every now and again, and simply live wherever I please. Granted, I won't do so forever, and when I've had my fill, I'll simply venture into the next life. The path to get there, though, is something that preoccupies my mind a great deal of the time. How will it happen? Will it hurt? Will I be satisfied with my life and where I've left it? Or will I seek to finish in death what I couldn't in my previous existence? So many questions, so many sleepless nights, so many waking moments of disorientation and disassociation. Life ends, death begins, life starts anew. Two things seemingly perpendicular to each other but are actually one and the same. Death exists as another form of life, and life exists as an aspect of death in its own right, ending one form of existence to bring it to another revitalized one. Everything's connected, two sides to the same coin, and that's what makes life so interesting, yet also so dull. So, am I afraid of dying? Not so much afraid as I am curious as to how I'll go. I've already died twice in my life so far, from a head operation gone awry when I was still a baby, to drowning in my grandparents' creek when I was a few years old. So death doesn't surprise me much anymore. If anything, I would greet it as an old friend, for it brings peace to the pain that is the poor circumstances of one's dying. But no, I am not afraid. Merely, I'm expecting and accepting that I shall die, and that upon my passing I'll be healthier and stronger, unbounded and can do what I please. If anything, I'll be happy once I'm dead, yet my life is not mine for the taking. Simply, I shall go when the time is right. Story 28. I used to be scared, but not anymore because my sister passed at 16 years old 2.5 months ago. I'm scared of dying young because my mom wouldn't last any longer, considering she says she's only alive right now because of me. Story 29. Yes, I think my fear mostly stems from trying to conceptualize what it feels like to have no consciousness, which obviously is not possible. Also, the idea of ceasing to exist for all eternity just freaks me out. Story 30. The way I see it is that each and every one of us has been dead for an infinite amount of time before we were born. We were not scared then, therefore we should not be scared now. We already know what it is like. There is no unknown to be afraid of. What scares me more right now is the knock-on effect my death would have on those that I care about who are still alive. That is my living thought on the matter, although when I go in about 60 years' time, there will be no me to ponder this. Story 31. I am afraid of death overall. I am in my late 20s, and in the last few years, whatever religion I was previously holding on to was let go completely. I consider myself spiritual, but I have no idea what I believe. I have some soul searching to do, I am mostly afraid of dying because of the unknown. I have no beliefs as of right now in an afterlife. I really struggle with the fact that there is no scientific explanation or concrete information about what actually happens to us after death. Almost 2 years ago, I lost someone who I loved deeply, and it shook me to my core. He was so young and full of life. His death was the first one I experienced where it felt very permanent to me. He was here and then gone and will never return again. That is so scary, to compare the pain and permanence of that loss to the inevitable loss of others you love, and also the loss of your own life. Story 32. Sometimes you see, I'm not religious at all, but I do hope that there is some kind of heaven and hell because there are so many bad people who get away with being bad their whole lives, and they should receive punishment after death. Same for people who are good for their whole lives but never get rewarded for it. However, then I start thinking, where would I go? Where would everyone who has never done something really bad or good go? Moreover, who decides? Does a higher being? Because that's a lot of people to filter through. Do we? Because there are good people who feel bad when they shouldn't and bad people who don't feel remorse, so if we decided, some people would get screwed over. Thinking of the logistics of heaven and hell makes my head spin, but I always end back up to wanting there to be something to give people what they deserve after death. Depending on where I am in my thought cycle, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Story 33. Not afraid so much of actual death, but more so of the many ways it can happen, especially gruesome deaths like burning alive and torture. But what scares me the most is how easily death can happen during everyday tasks like driving and walking. Story 34. I wasn't. When it was just me, I wasn't. I wasn't wishing for it or looking forward to it. I didn't want to die or anything. But the idea didn't scare me much. Now that I have a husband and a son and a very soon-to-be newborn, it terrifies me. The thought that my toddler would grow up with no real memories of me terrifies me. It is scary to think that my husband would be going it alone with two very small kids with only my life insurance through work and the money we have invested, and without my steady income to add to his own. It's scary to think of leaving my family behind without me.